After all, what would you do if your husband started to mix business with pleasure, especially if business was a horrible corpse and pleasure was an exquisite woman?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Jean and Pete Abbott, the nationally popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. Pat and Jean invite you to join them each week at this time on NBC for another recorded adventure in romance and crime. Tonight's puzzle and murder, the Royal Purple Scooter. And here is Jean Abbott.
I just called for Pat at his office. It was dinner time. My husband was ready to forget being a private detective and make a beeline for the nearest lobster a la Newburgh.
Come on, Jean. We'll go down to the skipper's, relax, and I'll order myself
Oh, is that a customer? So late.
I'm not expecting one. Come in. Yeah?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes?
My name is King. I'm from California Fidelity. Have you got a minute?
Yes, Mr. King. Surely, sit down. This is my wife.
How do you do?
How do you do, Mr. King?
What's on your mind, Mr. King?
Well, Mr. Abbott, my company sells accident insurance, and we think that we have a job for you.
What's the problem?
Do you mind if I deliver a short lecture on the insurance business?
Not at all. Go ahead.
The American public is really remarkable, Abbott. Now, our company spends $1 million a year telling people to use a little common sense. But they commit suicide anyway. They spend $1,000 for a painting, but they won't spend 50 cents to fix a rug on the stairway. Then their best friend steps on it, falls, and knocks his brains out. They'll take 6 hours to hang that same painting on the wall, but they won't take 60 seconds to move a bottle of iodine out of reach of the baby. Now, I hope I'm not shocking you, Mrs. Abbott.
Oh, no, please go ahead, Mr. King.
Now, we've done everything under the sun to try to educate the public. But they go right on, sticking their fingers in the light sockets, standing under trees during storms, and stepping on the soap in the bathtub. You know, when I get the casualty tables, I often think that maybe Freud was right about the death wish. Maybe we like dying. You'd think anyone but a congenital imbecile wouldn't light a match to look inside a gas tank. But a man in Sacramento tried it just yesterday. I just saw him at the morgue. Now we've got a new problem, and that's why I'm here.
Well, what's the problem?
Too many dangerous old cars on the road.
Oh, I see.
The American public loves this method of doing away with itself. Everybody and his brother has grabbed hold of anything on wheels that will move, and they're out on the road doing 90 in cars that belong in the junkyard. Cars with steering rods that snap, worn shoes that blow, brake linings that won't hold.
And that's costing your company quite a few dollars, I imagine, huh?
It's costing California Fidelity thousands of dollars every day, Mr. Abbott. Oh, we're geared to certain emergencies, but we can't see daylight on this one. So, our only hope is to make a test case. There was a chap killed in an auto crash on Locust Avenue last night. Here's the card on him. His name is MacDonald. Rick MacDonald.
Oh, yes. I think I read about that in the paper.
Yes. MacDonald was coming down a hill near Locust Avenue. It's a bad one. Terrific grade, soft shoulders. 8 fatalities in the last 6 months. The city council has been too busy to fix it. They could have banked the curve, but they preferred to spend the money painting gold letters on City Hall. MacDonald went right off the road and over a rocky cliff.
He was alone in the car, wasn't he?
Yes. He wasn't speeding, though. The meter was smashed at 32 miles an hour.
Did you find anything that showed why he spilled over?
No. We had a top-flight mechanic take the wreck apart. Couldn't tell a thing. Car was too banged up.
What do you know about the man who died?
MacDonald? Well, he was 42, owned a chain of drugstores, married. He seems to have kept out of trouble. He was what we'd call a good risk. Now, he'd bought the car just a few days ago. Now then, if we could show that the car was a death trap when he plunked down his $1,750 for it, if we could show criminal negligence by the dealer who sold it...
Then you'd have a case.
Exactly. Maybe then we could set off some legal fireworks and get out of paying these dozens of fat claims like MacDonald's. His alone is $100,000.
$100,000?
Yes.
Who sold him the car?
A chap named Tenike. Harry Tenike. He has a fancy lot over on 7th Street. Mr. Abbott, if you'd investigate for us, California Fidelity would be glad to pay any reasonable fee.
All right, Mr. King. Now, what do you know about the dealer, Tenike?
Not much. He's been selling used cars for a long time. Grabs jalopies cheap on the East Coast, then palms them off in Dallas or here in San Francisco. He's about, 36. Single. No prison record, no legal trouble at all.
Uh-huh. Okay, Mr. King, I'll take it from here.
It would be worth quite a lot to us, Mr. Abbott, if you could prove the accident wasn't necessary.
Well, it shouldn't be too hard to prove that some of the cars they're selling these days aren't exactly dreamboats.
Some. Probably most of them.
Insurance companies have such fine, trusting natures.
Well, we're not dealing with the Vassar Daisy chain, Mrs. Abbott. The insurance company very often involves what Mark Twain called downright human cussedness. It's not a business for people with queasy stomachs or elaborate moral standards.
Have you anything else to tell me, Mr. King?
No, I think that's about it.
I guess you forgot one little item. I read it in the paper this morning.
Oh, really? What was that?
When they found that wrecked car and McDonald's body, they found a scooter on the back seat, a purple scooter.
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten about that.
Well, the newspaper said that the McDonald's didn't have any children, so why was there a scooter in the dead man's automobile?
Oh, I see, Pat. You mean MacDonald was murdered. After Mr. King left, Pat and I headed for Harry Tenike's used car lot. It was a gaudy place with huge signs, glaring spotlights, and a public address system.
Yes, sir, folks. Harry Tenike is crazy. Crazy. He's giving his money away. He wants you to drive right up here and sell your car, and Uncle Harry doesn't care what he pays for it, not Uncle Harry.
Sounds like the old Army game, doesn't it, Pat?
I think the odds in the Army game are better.
Oh, that must be Mr. Tenike over there. The salesman said he's a big, fat fellow with red hair.
All right, now remember, Gene, I'm not a detective. I'm a customer.
Uh-huh.
We want to buy one of these terrific bargains from Tenike.
Okay.
Mr. Tenike.
Yes.
I'm interested in that 51 there, the gray coupe. What do you want for it?
Why, that's practically a brand new car, my boy. Bought that just this morning from a lieutenant in the Navy. You know how those chaps are. They take wonderful care of their cars.
How much is it?
Well, it's only got 16,000 miles on it. The tires are perfect. It's got a radio and a heater. The
I
finish
said,
on it's like the...
how much is it?
Well, I'm not rightly sure. You see, I've already offered it to a dealer, so I may not be able to sell it at all. I don't remember what price he bid me for it. What do you think it's worth, my boy?
You try to remember the price, huh?
I think it was, $1,600. Is that about what you expect to pay for a car?
Not for a car that's been in an accident, no, the way that one has.
Now, where'd you get that idea, my boy?
The fenders have been rewelded. The hood's been worked on. That car isn't worth $1,600 tonight.
Well, maybe it does need a little fixing, but I'll have my mechanic go over it for you.
Is that the kind of a phony deal you made with Rick McDonald? Did you sell him one of these hot cars, one of these suicide buses?
Well, where'd you get that idea?
A little birdie told me.
Very funny.
Did you know McDonald at all? Or was he just another sucker?
Look, Bud, when I want quiz programs, I turn on the radio. Who are you, anyway?
My name is Abbott. Pat Abbott.
And I'm Mrs. Abbott.
Who sent you here? You what they call a private investigator?
Oh, they call me a lot of other things, too.
Look here, Abbott. I did know Rick McDonald. Matter of fact, he happened to be a very good friend of mine. And I wouldn't chisel Rick out of a dime. The car I sold him was perfect.
Yes, but there isn't any way of proving that now, is there?
Rick knew cars, Abbott. He'd driven cars for 20 years. I couldn't have gypped him even if I wanted to. And besides, we were practically buddies.
So he'd trust you, eh, Tenike? He'd take your word, blind, that the car was okay.
Get out of here. I'd have knocked your lousy head off for hinting that I double-crossed Rick. I had nothing to do with the way he got killed. He was on a crummy hill. 8 other guys went off the same road this year. That ain't my fault. And no Penny Annie Sherlock Holmes.
You say you knew McDonald very well?
Sure I did. I've known the McDonalds for years.
You must have known Mrs. McDonald, too.
Dottie? Sure. So what?
So nothing.
Now, look here. Dottie's a good girl. You've been hearing that stuff about how she runs around? Now, they say that just 'cause she's so pretty. That's all. Now, go on, beat it, Abbott. You get out of here and forget my address. Ah, dear, you're coming around here with dirty cracks about Rick and Dottie. What are you trying to do? Show the boys you're smart? Show them that they hired a genius? What some people won't do to make a buck.
All right, easy, Tenike, easy.
You get out of here. You get out and make it fast before I take this wrench.
All right, I'm going, Tenike. Nice to meet you. Yeah, you're just the way they describe you in the ads. Jolly Harry Tenike, everybody's friend.
As soon as we left the used car lot, Pat suddenly reversed his usual policy. Instead of ordering me to go home and stop bothering him while he was on a case, he actually sent me out snooping. He actually asked me to help him. He told me to look up Tim, our old friend who was an expert mechanic. He told me to check on people who'd bought cars from Tenai. I went dancing away, very happy that Pat had realized at last that I was a very valuable assistant.
This is Pat Abbott. Ordinarily, I don't barge in on Jean's storytelling, but, just between you and me, I got rid of Jean purposely. I'd given her a lot of useless things to do so that I could go to see Mrs. McDonald alone. Oh, all in the line of duty, of course. From what I'd heard about Dottie, I knew I'd be better off if there weren't any other women around, and she thought I was single. See, I wanted Mrs. McDonald to play every card she had without inhibitions. Mrs. McDonald's one of the most colossal little numbers I'd seen outside the pages of Esquire. Sitting in her apartment, I thought that what Tenai called being a penny anti-Sherlock Holmes sometimes had its rewards.
Another Manhattan, Mr. Abbott?
Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. You're quite a mixer.
Call me Dottie. You've been much too formal ever since you got here.
Well, I'm sorry it's necessary for me to talk about your husband's death.
Oh, that's all right. I guess I'm not the weepy type anyway. Oh, I'll miss Rick. That's that. I'll miss him, well, for a while anyway.
Sounds like you two...
Oh, we got along as well as the usual married couple. Oh, you know how it is. Well, when you get married, you'll find there are lots of jokers in the deck. But, you didn't come here to talk about our marriage, did you?
No. I came to ask you about Harry Tenai. Do you know him very well? The used car tycoon?
Harry? Oh, sure. Harry and Rick both wanted to marry me. That was back in 41. Well, then we got into the war, and Harry was drafted. So I married Rick. Later, Rick got into the drugstore business and made a lot of money. It kind of burned Harry up. You know, first he lost me, and then Rick made a fortune while Harry was on the Anzio beachhead.
Was Tenai around last night, before your husband went out driving?
No, we hadn't seen Harry for a couple of weeks. Why? What are you trying to do? Hey, what are you getting at?
I'm just trying to get at the details.
Tell me something, Dick Tracy.
Sure, what?
Do you by any chance think I killed Rick?
Could be.
Oh, if you do, you're not as smart as you look. Why should I kill him? For the 100,000? I got all the money I want. Here, look at this necklace. You like it?
Yes, very pretty.
Genuine mother of pearl. Rick got it for me. Cost him 5,000. Come closer. Take a good look at it.
Yeah, that's swell.
You like my dress, too? Rick bought it. He thought it showed me off nicely. What do you think?
Certainly does.
Like my perfume? It's another present.
From Rick?
From a friend. Oh, I have lots of friends. Oh, this perfume's $65 an ounce. Now, do you think I had to kill Rick to make 100,000?
I don't know yet.
It's wonderful perfume, isn't it? Look, Pat, I can't go out while they're burying Rick. It wouldn't look nice. You know, there's a family downstairs, and, well, they'd be shocked. But, I need a little company, you know, somebody to hang around here with me, and I thought, well, maybe you and... Now, who could that be?
I think it's my wife.
Your what?
Oh, Mrs. McDonald? I'm Mrs. Abbott.
How do you do? Come in, won't you? I was just talking to your husband.
Hello, Jean. How'd you know I was here?
We'll talk about that later, Pat. Coming, darling?
Oh, yes, I was just going. Mrs. McDonald and I were discussing the legal aspects of the case.
Did you learn anything interesting, Pat?
Oh, yes. Mrs. McDonald has been very informative.
I'm sure she has. So nice to have met you, Mrs. McDonald.
Well, I'm happier to see you, Mrs. Abbott. Goodbye.
Toodaloo.
Goodbye. Pat Abbott.
Now, Jean, listen to me. I was being very tricky with that woman.
Yes, I can see you were.
I purposely was giving her enough rope, you see? Letting her go on and talk. I acted very innocent. I was just looking for clues, and... how'd you know I was there?
Right after I left you, it suddenly occurred to me. I asked myself why you were so anxious to send me off on errands. Then I remembered how the insurance man, Mr. King, described Mrs. McDonald. That was quite a legal discussion, Pat. With Manhattans all over the place, the room smelling like a perfume store. Does Mrs. McDonald hold all her legal conferences in slinky lounging pajamas?
Well, I don't know. All I want to say...
It must have been a very serious discussion. Oh, I can just see you, dear, looking at Mrs. McDonald's backless pajamas and saying, of course, what's most important is the case of Rittenhouse versus Humperdinck, where a writ of notel...
Well, now, look, Jean, if you don't trust me...
I trust you, Pat. Do you know something, little boy?
Yes, ma'am.
Santa Claus up at the North Pole watches all the little boys year-round. So he knows who deserves to get presents.
Uh-huh.
He keeps a little book on you, Pat Abbott. And I'd hate to see what he just wrote about you and Mrs. McDonald.
You would, huh?
You're not getting anything from Santa next Christmas, Pat Abbott. Back at Pat's office after we finished discussing Mrs. McDonald, we discussed the case, seriously. I asked Pat what the next step was, and he stood up and announced very solemnly...
In regard to the mysterious death of Rick McDonald...
Yes?
I'm going to take the final step necessary to solve the case. I'm going to,
Yes?
I'm going to...
Yes? Yes?
I am going to play beanbag.
Pat wasn't fooling either. Without any explanation, he left me flat in his office and went running over to the Locust Street section where, and he began to play beanbag with all the neighborhood youngsters. I decided that Pat was either disgusted with the case or temporarily insane. I decided this was a perfect opportunity for me to solve the mystery on my own. So I went back to Harry Tenike and his used car lot.
I told your husband to stay away from here, Mrs. Abbott. Now I'm telling you. Now get out. And stay out.
Then I tried Mrs. McDonald.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Abbott, but there isn't anything more I can tell you. Well, I think your husband covered everything very nicely when he was here.
3 days went by, and all this time Pat was still in his second childhood phase, playing one-a-cat, cops and robbers, and handball with the youngsters. He was on a sandlot watching a ball game when...
Hey, some game, eh, Billy?
Oh, boy, it sure is, Mr. Abbott.
Now, remember, if we win this one, I'm going to buy you a brand new first baseman's mitt.
Oh, golly. Would you? Oh, boy.
You got many toys, Billy?
Oh, sure. I got millions of them.
Uh-huh. Listen, Billy, you want to tell me a secret?
Uh-huh. What?
Well, it's about something that happened last week. Now, you can tell me the answer. You can trust me, you know.
Sure. What is it?
No, I won't tell a soul. But I want you to tell me the truth.
Go ahead. Shoot.
Billy, did you lose a scooter?
That night, the minute Pat came home, he picked up the telephone and put in a call for Mr. King of California Fidelity.
Well, I hope King is home, Gene.
You must have found out something very important to be calling him at home, Pat.
Yes, I did.
Hello?
Mr. King.
Yes?
This is Pat Abbott.
Oh, hello there, Abbott. Well, you got something for us?
Yes, I think I've got your answer. And the scooter did have something to do with it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I'll come right over.
All right.
Tell you what, my car's downstairs. I'll drive over and pick you up, then we can go to my office. I'll open it up, and I'll round up one of our lawyers, and then we'll get moving. You can fill out affidavits.
Yeah, fine.
I'll be over in, I should be there in 10 minutes. Bye-bye.
I'll be waiting. Bye.
Well, Pat, what'd you find out? Well, you're not going to make me wait for Mr. King, are you?
I found out
Yes?
that beanbag is a much more difficult game than you think.
We waited quite a while for Mr. King, almost 30 minutes. Pat got impatient and went to the corner stationery store for the evening papers. Finally, Mr. King appeared. We got into his car and drove off for the insurance office.
All right, Abbott. What's the story?
Well, Mr. King, in the first place, just as you suspected, McDonald didn't have an accident.
Really? Go on, Abbott.
Well, I spoke to Harry Tenike and to Mrs. McDonald, but the most fascinating item in the whole setup, as far as I was concerned, was a scooter found in the back of McDonald's automobile.
Yes. You said over the phone that you had something on that.
Yeah, well, I made it my business to hang around with the kids who live near the McDonald's. I sort of built up a reservoir of goodwill with the gang of them.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know if one of them had lost a scooter, and sure enough, one of them had. His name was Billy Livingston. Great kid, Billy. Kind of devilish, too. You see, the night McDonald died, Billy had stolen into the back of McDonald's auto with his scooter. He was hiding back there, trying to sneak a free ride. Well, McDonald parked in front of a stationery store and had gone inside to buy a paper or something. And while Billy crouched on the floor in the back, someone came up. He lifted the hood of McDonald's car and jimmied the works. Probably loosened the steering rod. Well, Billy got scared and ran away, leaving his scooter on the back seat. That's why it was found in the wreckage. Well, after the news went around town, Billy was too frightened to announce that it was his scooter.
Well, could Billy see well enough from the back seat that night to recognize who jimmied the car?
Mm-hmm. He could, Gene.
You mean the kid knows who committed the murder? He can identify them?
He can.
Well, who was it? Who killed McDonald?
You did, Mr. King.
Pat, you said...
Yes, I said Mr. King did, Gene.
I made a mistake, Abbott. I purposely hired you, figuring that it would be a nice cover-up for me. The double bluff, you know? The guy who pulled the gag, insisting that there be an investigation. Seems I underestimated you. I thought you'd go up a blind alley or pin it on Harry Tenike.
Pat, we've got...
You don't have to do anything, Mrs. Abbott. I carry a .38. I've carried it ever since I killed Rick. Comes in handy now. I can stop my car.
You know, King, the only thing that bothered me is why. Why did you do it?
Because of Dottie McDonald. I had a yen for Dottie. One of those bad ones. Makes you sick inside and pretty desperate. I sweated it out for a while, then she started to pay some attention to me. I went out with her a few times. Got to where I figured that if it weren't for Rick, I could be the number one boy. Especially since Dottie couldn't stand her husband. Being second in the league is no good. You get so you want to be first so much you don't care about anything else. Then Rick called. Wanted insurance on the car. I knew he'd bought a used one, probably a punk one. Harry Tenike hated Rick.
So, Harry Tenike was the perfect suspect, huh?
Sure. And there was another thing. The hill near Locust Avenue where Rick lived. It's a dangerous incline. And automobile accidents make almost perfect murders. So I had all the cards.
Yeah.
Now, if you'll stay right where you are. In the front seat, there's some rope, Mr. Abbott, on the floor beside you. Will you pick it up, please, and hand it to me? And, I think you're an intelligent man. I think you won't try anything. I think you know that if you do, I'll blow your wife's head off.
Here's the rope.
Now, don't move, either of you. I can wrap a rope around you with my left hand, I think. So, and tie it down to the door handle. So, gotta pull it tight. There we are.
What are you going to do?
Mrs. Abbott, the hill where Rick went over is just ahead of us. I'm going to start the car and then jump out. Simple, isn't it?
No, you can't do that. If we're found in your car without...
Did you ever hear of accident faking, Mrs. Abbott? That's another side to this fascinating business that I'm in. I had a long talk with one of the best accident fakers in the country last year. He taught me quite a few things. It'd be very easy for me to scratch my hands and legs and be found terribly shocked with the dead bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Abbott. We had an awful accident. You were killed. I was luckier.
Pat, he can't.
Easy, darling.
Now, I'll start the car. Now, if you don't mind, I'll be leaving.
Pat, he's gone. You've got to stop this car.
Tight this rope. Too tight.
I can't move my arms either. There's the hill, Pat. Right ahead of us. Stop the car. Stop the car. Oh, Pat, you've got to stop the car. There's the hill right ahead of us.
Come out, Billy.
Okay, Mr. Abbott.
Our friend Billy Livingston is with us, Gene. He's been hiding in the back. You know what I taught you to do, Billy?
Sure. I remember. I'll do it. I've just got to climb over this seat.
Hurry, Billy, hurry. There's a police car back.
They must have noticed this car is out of control. Now, go on, Billy. Do what I told you. Don't get excited.
Now I take hold of the steering wheel. Right, Mr. Abbott?
That's it, boy. Take it. Hold on to it. Steady. Steady.
Stop the car. Here's the hill, Pat. Here it comes.
You know which pedal's the brake, Billy. I showed you that.
Yes, I know. Now I step on the brake.
Keep the wheel steady and straight.
I can't reach the brake. My foot's too short.
Try, Billy. Go on, boy. Try. Reach, Billy. Reach. You've got to step on that brake.
Oh, it's so hard to reach it.
You're touching it, Billy. That's it. Now step on it.
The hill. The hill. Little Billy Livingston jammed his foot down on the brake just as we reached the soft shoulder on the curve. Just as we would have gone over. The police car behind us pulled up, and in less than 3 minutes, Pat led them to Mr. King, who was walking nonchalantly down the side of the road toward the bottom of the hill, where he thought we would be found dead. Later that evening at home. Pat, how did you happen to teach Billy how to stop the car? And how is it that he was hiding in the back anyway?
Well, do you remember when I got impatient, waiting for King to show up?
Uh-huh.
I strolled down to the stationery store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I picked up Billy. I thought King might try something like that once he knew I had him. Billy seemed to be quite a little expert at hiding in back of cars by now, so I took him along as an ally.
Very neat. Now, about, Dottie.
Oh, yes, Dottie.
Mm.
Wasn't she gorgeous? Sort of a care package from Errol Flynn. She keeps going where Betty Grable leaves off.
Wait a minute. Wait. What has she got that I haven't got?
Now, you come on out to the terrace in the moonlight, darling, and I'll take inventory.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those nationally known popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. We wish to thank Ann Corio for portraying the role of Dot McDonald in tonight's story. Our cast tonight included Mandel Kramer and David Pfeffer. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. Next week, same time, same station, another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts. This is Roger Tuttle speaking.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. Tonight, instead of joining the doctor at his home, we're all meeting here at Camp Roberts in California, where the doctor's going to tell his story before a large audience of GIs, and as usual, I'm going to tell my story right now. It's about Petri, California sherry. And I want you to know that Petri Sherry is the best beginning a good meal ever had. Before you sit down to dinner some evening soon, just pour yourself a glass of Petri Sherry. Look at that rich, dark amber color. Just smell the fragrance of those wonderful grapes. And then taste that Petri Sherry. Is that ever good? And say, if you like your sherry on the dry side, not sweet, then just wait till you taste Petri Pale Dry Sherry. If some of your family like regular sherry and some like pale dry, don't buy one, buy two. You can't go wrong so long as you buy Petri. Petri. Petri Sherry. And now let's join Dr. Watson and get on with our story.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell.
Doctor, your study seems a little bigger than usual this week.
Yes, my boy. I felt that as tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was rather an exciting one, the men here at Camp Roberts might like me to tell it to them in person.
I'm sure they will, Doctor. Which particular story have you selected?
One that I call The Strange Case of the Murder in Wax. It concerns one of the most sinister mass murderers who ever threatened the peace of London. It was in the summer of 1900, and the city had been rocked by a series of ghastly murders on Hampstead Heath.
Hampstead Heath?
Yes, Hampstead Heath. That's a large rambling park in the suburbs of London, Mr. Bartell, and noted as a rendezvous for young lovers. It was here that the elusive murderer, knife in hand, was wont to roam at night time, searching for his prey. All of his victims were young girls, and despite the frantic efforts of the police, each murder seemed to be as baffling as the one that preceded it. Finally, of course, as usual, Scotland Yard came to Sherlock Holmes for help. It seems almost like yesterday, Mr. Bartell, that Inspector Lestrade stood in our Baker Street rooms, imploring Holmes to handle the case.
Mr. Holmes, you've got to help us. I don't mind telling you the yard's at the end of its rope.
I sympathize with you, Lestrade, but I don't see that there's much that I can do. Only the police can handle the widespread, detailed work necessary to this case. The private detective is helpless.
Yes, perhaps if you'd come to Mr. Holmes in the first place, Lestrade, he might have helped you.
But the murderer hasn't finished yet. There'll be more killings if we don't catch him, you mark my words. Mr. Holmes, please help us, won't you?
Before I commit myself, Lestrade, give me the exact chronology of events, will you? All my information on the murders has been derived from the London newspapers, notoriously inaccurate in matters of fact.
I can give you all the particulars, sir. I've been on the case right from the beginning. All the murders have taken place on Hampstead Heath at night time, and all the victims have been young women.
Who was the first one?
A girl by the name of Oakley, Bessie Oakley. She was a shop girl who worked at Derry and Tom's in Kensington High Street. 3 weeks ago, she was out on the heath with a young fella by the name of Alfred Smith. He told me it was a moonlight night that night as they sat there out on the heath.
Come on, Bessie, give us a kiss.
Oh, go on, Fred. Don't be so soppy.
I ain't sloppy. Come on, Bess.
Hello. Who's this coming towards us?
Bloomin' prowler. Here, you, what you want?
Can't you say something?
Look how Bessie's got a knife. No, you don't.
Devil, you hit my Fred. Keep away from me. Keep away from me, you.
And that's all I know, Inspector Lord. I never got a good look at him. He caught me on the head, and when I come to, there was poor Bessie with her throat cut.
Yeah, that's your story, young fella, my lad. All right, Sergeant. You can book him on suspicion of murder.
Sir George, we shouldn't be walking on the heath. Didn't you read about the murder here 2 days ago?
It's a fine thing. I take you out in the moonlight, and you talk of murders. Let's talk about us, Violet, darling.
It seems to me we should talk about your wife.
My wife doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Violet, if I could get a divorce, I'd...
There's someone behind that tree. He's coming towards us.
Who are you, son? What do you... No, you don't.
Don't come near me. Don't.
Inspector Lestrade, she's dead, poor girl, I know, but a scandal can't bring her back. If there's any way to keep my name out of the papers,
Yeah, I'm afraid you'll have to take your chances, Sir George. Oh, and Sergeant...
Yes, Inspector?
You can turn that boy loose, Weevil, for questioning. The man who did this is obviously the same killer. I'm afraid we're going to hear a lot more from him.
Light edition evening paper. Hampstead Heath murderess strikes for 5th time. 9 girls
Bears murdered on Hampstead Heath. Light edition, evening paper here.
Now, look here, miss. You can't go walking by yourself on the heath. It ain't safe.
Thank you, Constable, but I'm not frightened. I want to be by myself. I want to think.
Well, I can't stop you by law, I suppose, but you shouldn't do it. Yeah. I don't know how to handle these modern young things, and that's a fact. Inspector Lestrade, he must have killed her the moment she got out of my sight. I searched the old ruddy heath, but I couldn't find the murderer. But it did startle him. He left his knife in the body.
Good, Jackson. The body's not been identified yet, eh?
No, Inspector.
We'll print her photograph in all the papers. We've got to find out who she is. Mr. Bishop, is this the body of your missing daughter?
Yes, it's Rosie. My Rose. Inspector Lestrade, if I ever lay my hands on that murdering fiend, I'll kill him. I'll kill him with my bare hand.
Here's the story, Mr. Holmes. Rose Bishop was the 10th and last girl murdered.
But she was the first girl murdered when she was alone. Eh, Lestrade?
Yes, sir.
You found no clues?
Well, none that proved anything when we checked on them.
Let me ask you a question or two, Lestrade.
Well, anything you like, sir.
You've taken the obvious precautions, of course.
Oh, how do you mean,
You
sir?
posted a heavy police guard on the heath?
Why, yes, sir. We've had 100 plainclothesmen walking there at night ever since the second murder. But he seems to slip through our fingers.
I suppose you've also posted policemen dressed in women's clothes.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. And we've hired girls to walk the heath in couples with our plainclothesmen. But the murderer won't seem to rise to our bait.
He's a cunning brute.
Yes, he is, Watson. Obviously a morbid madman obsessed by a hatred of love. It'll be hard to catch. Lestrade, you mentioned clues that amounted to nothing when you checked them. What were these clues?
Well, footprints, a couple of cigarette butts dropped at the scene of the crime. Nothing that helped us. The only important clue was the knife we found in the body of Rose Bishop, the last girl murdered.
Of course, the experts at the yard examined it.
Yes, sir. Didn't tell us a thing, though.
You had the knife with you?
Here it is, Mr. Holmes. I knew you wouldn't trust us. You'd want to look at it yourself.
Thank you, Lestrade. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
What is it, Holmes?
This knife is a collector's item. It's at least 100 years old, I should say. May I keep this overnight, Lestrade? I should like to conduct a few experiments of my own.
Why, of course you can, sir.
Then you're going to take on the case, Holmes?
And let us say that I'll take it under advisement. I'll do my best, Lestrade. I'll do my best.
Well, thank you, sir.
If any further developments occur, communicate at once, will you?
Yes, sir.
In the meanwhile, I'll smoke a few pipes on the problem. But I promise nothing, my dear fellow. I promise absolutely nothing.
O'clock in the morning, Holmes. You're still peering through your microscope at that knife Lestrade left for you.
That's true, old chap. That's quite true. You must be a very dull companion. Why don't you go to bed?
Oh, because I'm afraid I may miss something. Confound it. Have you discovered anything?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, what?
The handle of this knife is corrugated. On the underside, I observed a slight diffusion in the markings. Under the penetrating eye of the microscope, I found a minute deposit which had caused the diffusion. I have just analyzed that deposit. It's wax, colored wax.
Colored wax? Well, what does that signify?
Oh, by itself, very little. But when you combine it with a knife that definitely belongs to another century, it does suggest a certain origin.
I got an idea. Perhaps it came from the theater. An 18th century dagger could belong in a period play. And the colored wax might easily be part of an actor's makeup.
Excellent deduction, Watson.
Oh, thanks, George.
However, my own theory would be that this dagger came from a waxworks exhibition.
Oh, wrong again.
Putty is used in theatrical disguises, but I don't recall the use of colored wax.
Whereas it is used in making waxen effigies, and of course the dagger would belong as part of the costume.
Precisely, my dear fellow. It's a long chance, but I think in the morning we'll make a tour of the various London waxworks exhibitions. If my deduction is a false one, at least we'll have the pleasure of a busman's holiday. We can visit all our old friends who died on the gallows. Any tired, old chap?
I must say I'm a little weary. This is the fourth waxworks exhibition that we've been to.
The fourth and the last. If we fail to find any clues here at the Vex Museum, we can return to Baker Street.
Oh, thank heaven this is our last port of call. I'm so dizzy from looking at waxworks that they begin to look like human beings to me. Did you notice that I asked directions from the wax policeman at the entrance door?
Yes. Well, I'm sure many people have been deceived in the same way. Uh-huh. Here we are.
Oh, Monsieur Levesque doesn't believe in understatement, does he? Look at that sign there.
Oh, gracious me. The Chamber of Horrors. Come in and see the pageant of murder. All the people of history reenacting their famous crimes. Well, let's go in, Watson. We should feel thoroughly at home.
Creepy in here, isn't it? I've heard that Monsieur Levesque will pay £100 to anyone who will spend all night alone in the Chamber of Horrors.
Yes, I've heard of that challenge, too. Are you thinking of accepting the bet?
Great Scott, I will spend a night here for $1,000.
A very comprehensive collection of killers, aren't they? Let's see. Williams, Wainwright. Marchioness de Brinvilliers.
By George, yes. She was an attractive woman, wasn't she? As trim a pair of ankles as ever I've seen.
Yes, but you wouldn't have liked her cooking, Watson. She used the most lethal condiments of almost any woman in history. Hello.
What is it?
Look over there.
I was wondering when we'd come to one of your cases. Dr. Grimsby Rylott and the murder at Stoke Moran. Or the case of the Speckled Band. By Jove, Holmes, the tableau's extraordinarily realistic, isn't it?
Yes. One of other old friends of mine are represented here. Should rather like to renew acquaintance with Ricoletti of the Clubfoot and his abominable wife.
Ricoletti? I don't remember him, Holmes.
Oh, one of my earlier cases, old fellow. I must tell you that story sometime.
I wish you would, Arvoff. Holmes, look, that veiled figure over there. Read the placard in front of it.
The Hampstead Heath murderer. Well, how very interesting.
The face is covered with a black veil.
Is this pure showmanship, I wonder, or does Monsieur Levesque know more of Scotland Yard than I?
Good day to you, gentlemen.
Great Scott, you startled me, sir.
Are you admiring my collection of murderers?
Monsieur Levesque?
Yes, sir. And haven't I the distinction of addressing Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
That is my name, and this is my friend, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
How do you do, Doctor? I am greatly honored to meet you both. What do you think of my Chamber of Horrors?
Oh, it's very impressive. We're particularly interested in this veiled figure of the Hampstead Heath murderer.
Yes, indeed we are, sir. Is there a face beneath that veil?
I'll let you in on a trade secret, gentlemen. There are no recognizable features behind that veil. This is purely for publicity purposes. The public always expects to see the latest horrors here. And I thought I'd titillate their morbid palates by having a mysterious figure representing the killer. Of course, if he is captured, I shall add his effigy to my collection.
You think he will be captured, then?
One can only speculate. He's a clever man, Mr. Holmes.
By the way, Monsieur Levesque, does your offer of £100 to anyone who will spend a night in the Chamber of Horrors still hold good?
Oh, yes. Are you thinking of accepting the bet, Mr. Holmes?
No, but Dr. Watson would like to.
I don't recommend the experience, Doctor. It's an ordeal that calls for nerves of steel. However, I shall be glad to arrange for it.
I haven't the slightest intention of...
Backing down now? Of course you haven't, old fellow. What time shall my friend return, sir?
About 11:30 tonight. I'll be waiting for him at the main entrance.
Splendid. Come on, Watson.
Oh, Holmes,
Good day, Monsieur Levesque.
Good day, gentlemen. I shall be waiting for you tonight, Doctor.
Holmes, what the blazes do you think you're doing? I haven't the slightest intention of keeping that appointment tonight.
Well, of course you haven't. I shall keep it. Disguised as you.
You keep it? For heaven's sake, tell me what you're up to, Holmes. You didn't even mention that missing dagger to Levesque.
No, because he knows something about the murderer. I'm convinced of it.
Oh, why'd you say that?
As we were standing there talking to him, a breath of air from the open window blew back a corner of the veil. I'll swear that there are clearly defined features beneath it.
And so you're going back there tonight to find out?
That's right, old fellow. The superstitious used to believe they could use a waxen image to kill a man. Tonight, Watson, we shall prove that a waxen image can be used to trap a killer.
Dr. Watson will continue his story in just a second, so I'm just going to remind you that there are lots of ways to make good food taste better. But the easiest way is to serve that food with a good wine, a Petri wine. If you like a white wine with chicken or with fish, you'll love that wonderful Petri California Sauterne. If you like a red wine, then rich, hearty Petri California Burgundy is your wine. But if you don't know which you prefer, why not try them both? Petri Burgundy and Petri Sauterne. Red and white. Don't buy one, buy two. But always buy Petri. Well, Doctor, so Sherlock Holmes decided to disguise himself as you and spend a night in the Chamber of Horrors,
Yes,
huh?
Mr. Bartell, after dinner that night, he began to apply the makeup. It's uncanny to sit there in Baker Street and watch Holmes slowly turning into a very convincing replica of myself. As he did so, we discussed last-minute arrangements.
7:30, Watson. If I'm not back here by 2 o'clock, you better come after
Well,
me.
should let me come and wait outside, old fellow, just in case there's any trouble.
No. You'd attract attention. By the way, do you recall the name of the girl murdered on the heath?
Yes, Bishop. Rose Bishop, wasn't it?
Exactly. The only girl who was murdered when she was unescorted. The body was identified by her
Well,
father.
Robert Holmes.
Levesque is a French name, and yet the gentleman had a decidedly English accent. I should say that he adopted a foreign name as being more suited to his profession.
I don't see what you're driving at. What's the connection between Levesque, the owner of the waxworks, and the father of Rose Bishop, the murdered girl?
Levesque is the French word for bishop.
Great Scott. You think that he knows who the murderer is and...
I know only one thing, Watson. I see what is beneath that black veil.
Yeah. Now, how's my disguise?
Wonderful. You look exactly like me, but how'll you manage about the voice?
I don't think that'll be too difficult, old man. After all, Rebecca knows very well.
Oh, can't understand half what you're saying.
In your own case, old chap, that's a handicap that I've suffered from for years.
Rubbish. I'm perfectly intelligent.
Now, let me see, the bullseye lantern. Yes. Watson, I think I'll borrow your revolver, too. I probably won't need it, but for once I think it might be safer for me to go armed.
Here, Holmes. Now, do be careful.
I will, old chap. Don't worry. Goodbye. And if I'm not back by 2 o'clock, you better come to the waxworks and see what's happened to me.
Dr. Watson, you don't mind if I search you?
Oh, gracious, Rebecca, of course not.
And no lantern, please. The moonlight will give you all the illumination that you need. Oh, dear me. A revolver in your pocket. I'm afraid I can't allow that. Once before, a young man who unwisely accepted my bet left bullet holes in some of my finest waxworks before he finally went raving mad.
Gracious me, raving mad, did he? Miss Holmes were here.
Don't be frightened, Dr. Watson. Many of the waxwork murderers here are all friends of yours. They'll be good company. I shall come and release you at 8 in the morning.
Yes, but no. How about
Well, I've sealed all the windows with string and wax. I shall seal the door behind me as I leave.
Well, it's very unkind of you.
Midnight. The bet is on, Doctor. You still wish to go through with it?
Yes, I suppose so.
Very well, then. I shall leave you now. Good night, Dr. Watson.
Good night.
Pleasant dreams.
Pleasant dreams. Who's that? Gracious me, who's there? Oh, swan, I heard something shuffling about in the shadows. Who's Holmes here with me?
Listen at the window. Great Scott, it's Watson. Now before his time.
Well, here go the seals and the string.
Come on, up with it. Holmes. Holmes, you all right?
Shh. I'm all right. You came early, but it's just as well. You're carrying a lantern. Levesque took mine with him. Come on in.
There we are.
Go on, open or quiet. I'm glad to see you, Watson. But what made you decide to come here so early?
After you left the start, came to Baker Street. He told me there was another murder on the heath at 7 o'clock tonight.
Another murder, eh?
I started worrying about you, Holmes. I had a premonition of impending danger, and I decided to come over here. You're not angry with me?
Oh, of course not, my dear fellow. I'm glad of your company, and I appreciate your concern.
Have you looked under the veil of the waxwork figure of the Hampstead Heath murderer yet?
No, I was just about to. Your lantern will be most useful. Come on, Watson.
Oh, what have you been doing? Just doing nothing?
Yes, because I wanted to give Levesque an impression that I was here for the night, and I also wanted to do some serious thinking. I smoked 2 pipes on the problem, Watson, and I think I know the answer now. I'm willing to swear you'll know the face you see when I lift the veil from the waxen dummy.
Here's the figure.
Now, hold your lantern a little higher, will you, Chip? That's it. I lift the veil, and who do we see?
Good Lord, it's the waxwork figure of Levesque himself.
Precisely, Watson. An unparalleled example of the self-betrayal inherent in criminal egotism. Levesque couldn't resist the...
Holmes, the waxwork is moving. Scott, it's alive.
Yes, gentlemen. Which is more than either of you will be in a few minutes.
You re-entered this room by a secret door, I suppose?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. And since you've displayed such a flattering interest in the Hampstead Heath murderer, I decided to remove the wax figure and appear in person.
Look out, Holmes. He's got a revolver.
Oh, no, Doctor. This isn't a revolver in my pocket. What would the Hampstead Heath murderer want with a revolver? This is a knife. I feel so much more with a knife.
There are two of us, remember that.
And both unarmed. Which one of you meddlers wants to die first?
Look out, Holmes!
Watch them both together.
The lantern smashed.
Yes, and the moon's fading. What a pity.
Holmes!
Where are you? Over here by the effigy of Macbeth. How very thoughtful of you to provide him with a dagger, Levesque.
A wooden one, my dear Holmes. You can't escape me. I can feel my way in the dark here. I know every inch of this room. You're doomed, both of you.
Don't strike a match, Holmes. You'll make a target of yourself.
The devil with that. I'm lighting this newspaper. It'll make an excellent torch to set light to the nearest waxwork.
No! Don't burn my waxwork!
Why not? Wax on a wooden frame should blaze brilliantly. There we are.
Oh, you devil! You're destroying my light's work!
Holmes, that burning wax is pouring all over the floor. The curtains are catching light. The whole place will burn down.
Oh, my beautiful museum!
I thought this would smoke you out. Quick, Watson, at him again.
What's that knife, Holmes?
Well, Mr. Holmes, you've done it again. You've solved the case in a blaze of glory. Get the point, sir. A blaze of glory.
Yes, Lestrade, I get the point. Thank you very much. Pass that marmalade, will you, Watson?
Holmes, is that the morning paper you brought with you, Lestrade?
Yes, Doctor. Want me to read you the headlines?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. Hampstead Heath murderer captured in fire that destroys waxwork exhibition. You know, Mr. Holmes, you and the doctor were lucky you weren't burned to death. Never mind the chance you ran of having your throat cut by that maniac.
It was fortunate that the police and firemen were on the scene as quickly as they were. Lebec had the strength of 10 men.
Yes, the strength of a madman. He'll never stand trial, of course.
No, Doctor. He'll end up in an asylum where he belongs. Mr. Holmes, what made you suspect Lebec?
You first gave me the clue yourself, Lestrade. You told me that all the murdered girls were accompanied by men when they were attacked. All of them save one, Rose Bishop. Therefore, if the murderer was venting a hatred of love, he had to be someone very close to Rose Bishop to know that she was a suitable victim. That point alone, which I was shockingly slow in observing, should have told us to focus our attention on the father, Mr. Bishop, alias Lovelock.
Well, your theory was certainly right, Mr. Holmes. You should have heard his raving to the arrest. He swore his daughter had been ruined, and so he'd killed her, too.
Holmes, the waxwork figure of the killer, the one with a veil over its face, the features underneath were those of Lebec himself, weren't they?
I'm certain of it, old fellow. You see, he had two great prides. The first, his natural pride as a fine craftsman in wax. The second, his perverted pride as a prominent and successful murderer. These two prides combined suggested to his crazed mind that he make a wax figure of himself and range it with the other great killers of history.
Yes, but he was cunning enough to protect himself by placing a veil over the face.
Precisely, my dear fellow. And when he saw us yesterday and we accepted the wager, he undoubtedly became suspicious and removed the wax figure last night and made his personal appearance as the murderer with every intention of killing us both. Yes, we were very lucky, old chap.
Yeah, if you ask me, Mr. Holmes, you've been very smart.
No, I quite agree, Lestrade. I think you solved the case brilliantly, Holmes.
No. I've been very sluggish. I solved by circumstance and melodrama what should have been a purely intellectual problem. I'm not pleased with myself. Lestrade, I hope that my name has not been used in that newspaper report.
No, it hasn't, sir.
Excellent. I want no credit in this case.
Well, do you mean to say that you're going to let Scotland Yard get the praise for catching him, Holmes?
Why not?
Well, that's very generous of you, Mr. Holmes. It'll make things a lot easier for me.
Yes, it certainly will. Holmes, I can't see why you reproach yourself.
Because, my dear Watson, like the Hampstead Heath murderer, I, too, have my pride as a craftsman. This case had a clearly defined pattern, and I was unable to recognize it. If you should have occasion to chronicle this story, Watson, and I should prefer that you didn't, I would like you to entitle it The Education of an Idiot.
Oh, come now, Holmes. The education of an idiot? That's absurd.
I know. But if you do tell this story, it'll probably end up as The Strange Case of the Murderer in Wax.
Well, Doctor, that was sure a swell story. You know, that's the kind of story I like. Lots of action.
Well, that's the kind of story I like to tell. You know, Mr. Bartell, although our broadcasts were heard overseas every week through Armed Forces Radio, this is one of the few occasions that I've had the privilege of really telling my story directly to the boys. And it's been a great pleasure for me to be here at Camp Roberts.
Well, that not only goes for you, but for me too, Doctor, and for the Petrie family. There are no words to describe how much our country owes our servicemen. And to all of you, the Petrie family wants to say, just as every American wants to say, thanks for a swell job. Well, Dr. Watson, what story are you planning to tell us next week?
Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you one of the strangest adventures that ever happened to Sherlock Holmes. It takes place in a monastery high in the mountains of Tibet and concerns itself with an avalanche, an execution, and a murder.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Adventure of the Second Stain. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series.
Petrie Wine brings you the Casebook of Gregory Hood. Tonight, the Petrie family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to the story of Gregory Hood, Suspect. Another exciting adventure from the Casebook of Gregory Hood. And as for me right now, I'd like to suggest a delicious new dessert. Peaches in Petrie, California Muscatel wine. Just imagine juicy, golden sweet peaches flavored by the wine that goes with them perfectly. Petrie Muscatel. Sounds good, doesn't it? But you'll never know just how good till the first bite. Absolutely delicious and easy to prepare, too. You just drain the juice from canned peaches, cook the syrup till slightly thickened, mix with twice the amount of Petrie Muscatel, pour over the peaches, and chill for 2 hours. Just be sure you use Petrie Muscatel, because you know that Petrie Muscatel is really special. A sweet, clear, golden wine with a full, rich flavor. It's really good. Try it tomorrow night for dessert. Peaches and Petrie Muscatel. You can serve Petrie Muscatel proudly because those 5 letters P-E-T-R-I spell the proudest name in the long history of fine wine. Petrie. Well, once again, it's Monday night in San Francisco, and time for our weekly date with Gregory Hood and his friend and attorney, Sanderson Taylor. Tonight, Greg suggested we rendezvous at that gourmet's paradise, Emilio's on Powell Street. Let's join him there, shall we?
Hello there, Harry.
Evening, Greg. How are you, Mr. Taylor?
Fine, thank you, Harry. Well, we just ordered a couple of sherries, Harry. Shall I make it 3?
Swell, Greg. I'd like one.
I'll make that 3, Mario.
Yes, Mr. Hood. Well, Greg, how's about tonight's story? From the hint you gave us last week, it sounded like quite a yarn.
It was, Harry. Though if Greg had listened to me, he'd never been mixed up in the mess. If I listened to you, Sandy, I'd keep out of a lot of trouble, I'm sure, but I'd probably die of boredom. In any case, I always was a sucker for beauty and distress.
That's the way a good many stories of yours start, it seems to me.
Oh, me, I'm just the poor man, Sir Walter Raleigh.
Who is this particular damsel in distress?
A sultry brunette by the name of Daphne.
Daphne Bloggs.
Oh, now we'll skip the blogs, Sandy. It strikes a discordant note. Daphne was a girl I'd known quite well when I was staying down in Burlingame a couple of summers ago. I lost track of her for a while, and then we ran into each other at the theater a few weeks ago. I was catching a performance of that swell play, The Hasty Heart.
Oh, yeah.
During intermission, I was getting some air when a voice behind me said,
Hello, Greg.
Daphne. Well, how nice to see you again.
Thanks, Greg. I saw you inside, so I thought I'd catch you at intermission and say hello.
Oh, I'm glad you did. How about some supper after the performance tonight?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
Said she with violent enthusiasm. Oh, what's wrong, Daphne? Where's that champagne sparkle you used to have? Haven't you been getting the proper vitamins lately?
Greg, I'm in trouble. Desperate trouble.
I'm sorry, Daphne. What's wrong?
I'm being blackmailed.
Blackmailed?
Greg, I'm frantic.
Oh, wait a minute, darling. Take it easy. Uncle Greg's in charge now. Now, let's step over here. Now, let's get the deal straight. Who's trying to blackmail you and what's his hold?
Read this note. I found it pinned to the seat of my car when I started out tonight.
Uh-huh. Plain manuscript paper typed in capitals. Blackmailer's usual bold approach. If you don't wish your father to have proof of last week's convenient car breakdown in Reno, bring $1,000 to the office of Jethro Bronson on Montgomery. If you don't tell the story, with photostatic copy of proof will be sent to your father. Dirty rats. Do you know this Jethro Bronson, Daphne?
No, Greg, I've never heard of him.
What's the true dope on this Reno story?
Oh, it's all perfectly innocent. I was up there with Martin Johnson last Friday.
Martin Johnson, he's married, isn't he?
Of course, his wife's my best friend. She's in New York, and Martin and I thought it'd be fun to drive up to Reno for the day and do some gambling.
I see.
We started back late, and the car did break down. We couldn't get it fixed, and we had to spend the night in an auto court. But it was all perfectly innocent, Greg.
Well, couldn't you explain that to your father?
You remember, Dad. He's Victorian to the core.
Oh. Yes, I seem to recall that he asked me my intentions the first time I called on you. Of course, I didn't tell him.
He'd never understand. In any case, I've already lied to him simply because I knew he wouldn't believe the truth. I said I spent Friday night with a girlfriend, and he checked on that alibi. Of course, the girl backed me up.
And now, if you did tell him the truth, he'd think the worst, huh?
Of course he would. Greg, what am I going to do? I can't go to the police because they go straight to Dad. I certainly can't raise $1,000.
Well, even if you could, darling, I wouldn't let you hand it over.
Then what can I do?
Uncle Greg will take care of it. First of all, let's go back and see the rest of the show. After that, we'll go out to supper, and I'll make a phone call.
Now, Greg, please be careful what you say.
Now, don't worry, Daphne. I'm going to call Sandy Taylor. He's my pal and a very smart attorney, and discretion is his middle name. I think this is a case where we don't make any move without taking legal advice.
Seldom stop at one payment.
Sure, but I've no intention of letting her make any payment. She hasn't the dough in any case. Sandy, have you ever heard of this guy, Jethro Bronson?
Never. I looked him up in the phone book while I was talking to you, though.
Oh?
He's got offices on Montgomery Street, all right.
Well, I think I'll call on him in the morning as Daphne's representative.
Better let me go, Greg. I can handle him.
Oh, but you're so doggone ethical, Sandy. With a rodent like this, a clip on the jaw could do a lot more good than throwing 20 books of law at him. Now, Sandy, I think I'll call on Mr. Jethro Bronson.
Well, okay, Greg, but watch your step. Blackmailers usually know all the answers.
I'll watch it, Sandy. But don't be surprised if you hear a squeal for help from Montgomery Street in the morning. I have a feeling I may land myself in a whole mess of trouble.
I'm Miss Carter, Mr. Bronson's secretary, Mr. Hood. You have no appointment.
No, Miss Carter, but I think if you tell him I'm a friend of Daphne Bloggs, he'll see me.
Miss Daphne Bloggs. Just a moment, please. Mr. Bronson will see you, Mr. Hood.
Oh, the name of Bloggs works miracles, doesn't it? Thank you, Miss Carter.
You're welcome.
Yeah, come and sit down, Mr. Hood. I'll walk around, thanks. You have quite an office, Mr. Bronson. I'm so glad you like it. I do. I was admiring the chaste simplicity of your lettering on the outer door. Jethro Bronson. Nothing more. Is more necessary? You might have added abandoned hope, all ye that enter here, or something equally appropriate. I don't think that I understand you, Mr. Hood. Sure, you're just a bewildered businessman who can't understand a new client. Hey, you have a swell view of the bay from here, as far as I can judge by peering through these dirty windows. You're due for a cleaning, Mr. Hood. And so is Daphne Bloggs. I presume you represent her. I do. You brought the money? Ah. The businessman is confused no longer. No, Bronson, I didn't bring the money. I thought first I'd like to see the evidence. You can see a photostatic copy of it. Here. Bronson, you'd have to get on a stepladder to pass the time of day with a louse, wouldn't you?
Very funny, Mr. Hood.
You own these auto courts, Bronson?
Yes. It was a profitable investment.
I'll bet, especially when you can fix up the registrations this way. You knew that Miss Blogg's father was a rich man, I suppose?
Mr. Hood, I assure you I know all that's necessary about the family. When do I get the money?
I'll give you a check now.
A check? Oh, no, Hood, I'm no fool. I want cash, and I want unmarked bills of low denomination, and I'd like the cash today.
Okay. I'll go over to the bank.
Hood, I don't like the way you're fingering that paper knife of mine. Don't let its sharpness give you any stupid ideas. I have a revolver in this drawer, you know.
Don't worry, Bronson. If I did anything to a rat like you, I wouldn't use a knife. I'd use... Yeah, why not?
Keep away from me!
Ah, that was a pleasure. Have a nice nap, Mr. Bronson. I'll be back in a flash with the cash.
$90, $1,000, Mr. Hood.
You got the numbers on these bills, Barney?
Yeah. Up to some new trickery on one of your cases?
Well, fairly old trickery, I'm afraid. Thanks.
Just a minute. I'll let you out.
Oh, you locked up?
Yeah. You got in just under the wire. Well, Mr. Hood, good luck with your tricks.
Luck? Thanks. I have a hunch I may need it.
You wish to see Mr. Bronson again, Mr. Hood?
I don't wish to, but I have to, Miss Carter.
Senator Harrison is waiting to see him, too.
Oh, well, I'll take my turn. How are you, Senator? I haven't seen you since that last get-together at the Bohemian Grove.
Well, bless my soul, it's young Gregory Hood. How are you, my boy?
Fine, thank you, sir. And what is the great politician doing here, may I ask? Or maybe I shouldn't.
Well, I have certain business with this fellow Bronson. And what, may I ask, is the celebrated Gregory Hood doing here?
Certain business also, Senator.
Oh, Mr. Hood, I didn't realize you were the Gregory Hood.
I'm flattered that you've heard of me, Miss Carter. Just the same, what's the chance of accelerating our interviews with Mr. Bronson? He is in, isn't he?
Yes, he's talking on long distance. I'll see if he's through.
Thank you.
Hood,
Yeah?
you've had dealings with this man Bronson before?
No, Senator. This is my first unhappy experience.
Well, he's an unmitigated scoundrel, Hood. I've often thought that I...
What the devil? What's wrong, Miss Carter?
Oh, get the police!
The police. Now, look here, young lady.
What happened?
It's Mr. Bronson. He's been murdered.
The police are taking the devil's own time with their examination, Sergeant. Why don't they question us? I'm a busy man.
I'm sorry, Senator, but there's nothing I can do.
Well, who's in charge of this case, Sergeant?
Lieutenant Magruder, Mr. Hood.
Magruder, huh? That makes it tough for me. Where's Lieutenant Silvers?
He's on vacation, Mr. Hood.
Oh, then I am in trouble. Good thing I put in a call to Sandy Taylor. I may need a smart attorney.
Okay, Miss Carter. Don't leave the office. Come in, Hood.
But, Lieutenant, I'm a very busy man. Can't you take me first?
No, Senator, you'll have to take your turn. Come on, Hood. Sit down.
I find your old world charm irresistible. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Hood, I've waited a long time to catch you out on a limb. Now I've done it.
Why do you hate me so much, Magruder?
Because you're an amateur dick who thinks he can make monkeys out of the police. We don't tell you how to run your business. Why do you mix yourself up with ours?
I don't. Consciously, it mixes itself up with me.
Is that a fact? Well, you're mixed up in this one, but good. Let me see your right hand.
Oh, it's a little dirty, but there.
No. Your knuckle skin. There's a bruise on the corpse's chin. You socked him, didn't you, Hood?
Yes, Sherlock, I did.
Why?
Because I didn't like him.
Why were you here? We know he was a blackmailer, though we could never pin anything on him. Do you have something on you?
On me? No.
Then you were stooging for somebody else. Who was it?
I ain't talking, as they say, Magruder.
Well, you'll talk to the judge, Hood, because I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
Wow, that's very interesting. If you do that, Magruder, you'll end up with those tired arches of yours pounding a beat again.
Skip the comedy, Hood. It won't get you off this spot.
Oh, Greg.
Sandy, I'm certainly glad to see you.
Yeah, I got here as fast as I could, Greg.
Lieutenant Magruder, meet my attorney, Sanderson Taylor.
You don't have to introduce us, Hood. Mr. Taylor and I know each other.
Yes, what goes, Greg?
The lieutenant's got a vacancy for me in death row, I think.
Mr. Taylor, I'm just about to arrest your friend on suspicion of murdering Jethro Bronson.
What? On what evidence?
He admits that he slugged the dead man.
That doesn't prove murder, Lieutenant.
But this paper knife does. Bronson was stabbed with it. I powdered it for fingerprints. Your prints are on it, Hood. I had them checked.
This fast?
Uh-huh. I've been looking forward to this day ever since that Fisherman's Wharf business.
Oh. You really do have it in for me, don't you, Lieutenant?
Greg, did you handle this knife?
Sure I did, but I didn't stab the guy with it. Can I look at those prints on the knife, Lieutenant?
Yeah. But don't handle it.
Don't worry, I won't mess up Exhibit A.
I'm going to arrest him, Mr. Taylor.
If you do, Lieutenant, I'll have him out on a writ before you can spell habeas corpus.
Well, that should give us several hours' start.
You're very funny, Mr. Hood. But you're not going to laugh your way out of this one.
Hey, Magruder, even though you hate me, I'd like to save your badge and your arches. Come here.
What's that?
What is it, Greg?
You're planning to book me on the evidence of these prints, Lieutenant?
Sure.
And I'd like to point out a small inconsistency. The faint old prints of Bronson's, I suppose.
Yeah?
And these two heavy new ones are mine?
Sure they are.
Fine. But there are only two prints. The thumbprint on the face of the handle, the forefinger print on the back. That's the way you hold a knife when you play with it, as I did, or when you open letters. But you couldn't possibly hold it that way, and only two fingers to stab a man.
Why, of course not. If you were stabbing a man, the prints of all the fingers would be on the handle.
What do you say, Lieutenant?
I guess you're right. But why aren't there murderer's prints on here?
I'd say the answer to that would be a pair of gloves. And if you want to make an issue of my prints being on a knife, I'll be very happy. It's perfect evidence that I didn't kill Jethro Bronson.
Okay, Hood. You've talked yourself out of this one for a minute or two.
Oh.
But before this case is over, I'm warning you. This is going to be the last chapter in the case book of Gregory Hood.
While Gregory Hood takes a brief time out from tonight's adventure, I'd like to remind you again about that swell Petri California Muscatel and peaches. Petri Muscatel goes mighty well with peaches in most any form, such as peach cake, peach cookies, and peach shortcake. Yes, the wonderful flavor of Petri Muscatel really does something to desserts made with peaches. There are plenty of luscious canned peaches in the markets now. You can always get Petri Muscatel at your store, and in nearly every locality, your dealer will be glad to give you a little recipe folder which gives 4 wonderful ways to serve peaches with Petri Muscatel. Just be sure you buy Petri Muscatel, because all Petri wines are good wines. Greg, for a moment there you had me worried. I thought my favorite amateur detective was going to be arrested for murder.
For a moment there I had me worried, too. Lieutenant Magruder's a tough hombre, and Gregory Hood is very far from his favorite detective.
But he let you go.
Yes. Sandy and I gravitated to the Prosperity Corner bar and quickly went into a huddle.
Oh, Greg, you're still under suspicion, and we've got to clear you.
Very true, Sandy, and the more I brood about the case, the more I incline to one opinion.
Huh? And that is?
Well, Sandy, Magruder told us what Miss Carter testified.
Yes. She said that she talked to Bronson before he made the phone call. She came into the outer office where you and Senator Harrison were waiting. And the next time she went in, Bronson was dead.
Exactly, which would mean that if her testimony is true, that she's the only person who could have committed the murder. Unless, of course, an especially adroit seagull flew through his window and did the deed.
If she did stab him, it wouldn't be hard to think of a motive. I've known people before who worked for blackmailers simply because their employer was blackmailing them, too.
Sure, but if she were the killer, surely she'd dream up an alibi.
Yeah. Maybe she saw you handling the knife and thought your fingerprints would pin the rap on you.
Well, it's possible.
Or it might have been Senator Harrison. It's pretty obvious that he wasn't there purely for a social call.
Yes, Sandy, I can see the possibility of motive. It's the how of this killing that worries me. The dead man's office was on the 9th floor. The only exit was through his door. Miss Carter saw him alive, walked outside to where the senator and I were waiting. She goes back a few minutes later. He's dead.
Yeah. Well, the evidence would certainly point towards the secretary. Say, Greg, how's about the girl Daphne Bloggs? She'd know as well as we do that Bronson's death would put her in the clear. That's a good murder motive in itself.
Well, true, Sandy, but I repeat, how? Daphne's a very cunning girl, but she can't float through a window 9 stories high.
No, that's true. Looks like a blank wall, Greg, but we've got to get around.
Or over it. Well, Sandy, I think the next step is obvious.
To go and see the secretary, Miss Carter.
Right.
Huh?
I have her address. She lives on Russian Hill. But I'm worried.
Huh? What?
I'm an ardent whodunit fan, and she's the obvious suspect. By all the rules, it can't be her. Oh, well, this is real life. Let's call on her and see what happens.
Mr. Hood, I'll be glad to help you any way I can.
I thought you would be, Miss Carter.
You see, my friend is still under suspicion by the police.
I realize that, Mr. Taylor. And I must confess that if I hadn't known you were the Mr. Hood, I would have suspected you myself.
Well, you wouldn't have been the only one in your suspicion.
Miss Carter, did you know that your employer's profession was blackmail?
Blackmail? No, I certainly didn't. Though I did know he was crooked. A blackmailer. I wonder why Senator Harrison was there. Do you suppose Mr. Bronson had some hold over him and that the senator killed him?
When did he have the opportunity?
Oh, that's true. He never went past me, and there's no other door.
He didn't even go in after you left the office. He and I watched each other like hawkshaws until the police arrived.
You left the office, Miss Carter?
Yes, Mr. Taylor. After I called the police, I was sick.
What's your own theory, Miss Carter?
Well, I didn't have one until I looked at this newspaper, Mr. Hood. Have you seen it?
No. What ties in?
Well, I spotted this on the back page.
Huh?
Oh, I may be imagining things, but it seems to me that it might connect.
What does it say, Greg?
You're a very smart girl, Miss Carter. Listen to this, Sandy. A man was arrested in Montgomery Street late this afternoon. He claimed to have been doped, but the police are holding him on a vagrancy charge.
What does that have to do with Bronson's murder?
Because it says here he was a professional window cleaner.
Well, I still don't see
I
what
do. Bronson said that his windows were due for a cleaning. You can see what happened. The murderer doped the window cleaner, borrowed his equipment, worked his way around to Bronson's window, went in and stabbed him, and then made his getaway. It's the only way an outside person could have gotten in.
Then let's go and talk to the window cleaner, Greg.
Sure, Sandy. He's in jail, and that's one place that I'm sure will have no difficulty in gate crashing.
That's the way it was, Mr. Hood. I was standing in the corridor just filling my pipe, and I smell something sweet. Next thing I know, I'm down in the basement. Must have taken me down the service elevator.
Sounds like chloroform, Sandy.
Uh-huh. What time was this, Hank?
Oh, I don't know. Middle of the afternoon, I guess.
Well, don't you carry a watch?
No. My profession, it's too risky. Might fall down and break the bejeepers out of it.
Occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Have you any idea what time it was, Hank?
No, but it was sometime in the afternoon because I could hear a radio in one of the offices, and they was giving the race results. And they're always at the same time in the afternoon.
How much of it did you hear?
The announcer was starting to give the results of the 4th race, just as he named the horse. It was Lady Best. I heard that, and next thing I knew, I was waking up downstairs.
Track broadcast. Swell, Hank. Though you don't carry a watch, you've given me a dandy time check.
Well, how do you mean, Greg?
All I have to do is call the radio station. Hank was knocked out as the 4th race was announced. As soon as I know the time of that, I think we'll have the answer to murder. Yeah. Well, then the 4th race was announced at exactly 12 minutes past 3. I'm much obliged to you. There's that time check, Sandy.
Well, I don't get it, Greg.
I think I do. This whole case revolves around time. The bank closes at 3. How long do you suppose it took me to walk from there to Bronson's office?
Well, it isn't more than a block. A couple of minutes?
Just about, and maybe another minute in the elevator. I think this gives us the answer, Sandy. Let me make another phone call to Lieutenant Magruder, and then we'll go back to Miss Carter's apartment on Russian Hill. I think that's where we're going to get the final payoff.
Very nice of you to bring me a corsage, Mr. Hood.
I think you deserved one, Miss Carter. If you hadn't spotted that item about the window cleaner, this case might still be unsolved.
They've arrested the murderer?
Magruder's got a warrant out.
Who is it?
Sandy's an attorney. Let him lay it on the line for you.
Well, this whole case revolves around the matter of time.
Very true, Sandy. Go on.
The killer, after drugging the window cleaner, had to take his belt, crawl out, and work his way around to Bronson's window. Now, we know that the window cleaner wasn't drugged until 12 minutes past 3. You established that fact when you called the radio station.
Exactly, Sandy.
So, if the window cleaner wasn't drugged until 12 minutes past 3, the murder couldn't have been committed before 3:15.
That's the logical deduction, Sandy. And it's also where the whole case blows up.
Why?
How do you mean, Mr. Hood?
Miss Carter, it's a problem in primary mathematics. I got to my bank at closing time. I was let out a few moments later. It took me 2 minutes to walk to the office building, say another minute in the elevator. I was in the office with you not more than a minute before you went in and found the corpse.
Well, I still don't understand, Mr. Hood.
Well, I'll go over it again, and you count on your fingers, Miss Carter. I left the bank at 1 minute past 3, 2 minutes to walk to the office, a minute in the elevator, and a minute in the outer office would add up to 4 or at the latest 5 minutes past 3. And at 5 minutes past 3, you went back in the office and he was dead.
Yes, Greg, that's right.
Uh-huh. But on the other hand, the window cleaner, who was to become our number one suspect, wasn't drugged until more than 5 minutes afterward.
Afterwards? But why, Mr. Hood?
Miss Carter, you make a pretty picture of innocence, but I don't know who you think you're fooling.
What do you mean?
The whole thing is obvious now. You killed Bronson. Then when the senator spoke to me, you realized I was the Mr. Hood, as you put it, so you knew it wasn't safe to frame me.
So she dreamed up the idea of drugging the window cleaner and then drew the fact to your attention.
Sure, Sandy. It was a neat idea, a very neat idea. If there hadn't been a cast iron time check on the whole deal. You're very quiet, Miss Carter.
You said that Lieutenant Magruder had a warrant out.
That was just to lead us into this conversation. Magruder wouldn't believe a word I say. But Lieutenant Silvers will be back soon. He'll believe me.
You'll never talk to him. And your friend Ivor.
Put that revolver away, Miss Carter. Surely one murder a day is enough.
1 or 3, it doesn't make much difference, Mr. Taylor.
Why did you kill Bronson?
He was blackmailing me, too.
What hold did he have on you?
While my husband was overseas. I wasn't playing square.
Oh, and Bronson found out, huh?
Yes, and I only learned about it yesterday.
So you stabbed him and then dreamed up the window cleaner gag.
Yes. I knew that the windows were due to be cleaned today, and I suddenly saw how I could establish a perfect cover-up.
It was a perfect cover-up, Miss Carter. If it weren't for the fact that we can establish the time element...
Wait a minute, let me get this straight. You went into Bronson's office after I left. You found him where I knocked him out cold. You stabbed him. Then after you called the police, when you said you were sick, you left the office and drugged the window cleaner, took him down in the service elevator, and hoped we'd fall for the idea that the murder had been committed by someone coming in through the window. That right?
Yes, that's what I'd hoped. It's a pity you had to be so smart. I really don't want to shoot you, but I must.
Miss Carter?
It's the only way.
Magruder!
Gun, Miss Carter. Thank you. I'll take care of that gun. I came as soon as you called me, Hood. I didn't trust you, but I figured I might as well listen. I came up on the fire escape. Nice of the young lady to leave her window open.
Well, Magruder, you have your confession. And also, I hope you realize that you've got a nasty, suspicious mind where I'm concerned.
Okay, Hood. You were right. This time. And I don't mind getting at the rights of a case. Even if an amateur has to help me. But one of these days, you're going to start something you can't finish.
I hope not, Lieutenant, but it's possible.
You're darn right it is. And when that happens, it's my last prayer every night that I'll be the cop on that case.
What a story. What a story. But say, Greg.
Yes, Harry.
I'm more convinced than ever that Magruder just doesn't like you.
Why, that couldn't be.
Oh, no?
Why, he's very solicitous about my health. Seems determined that someday I'm going to take a long rest at San Quentin.
Possible.
Magruder doesn't think so.
No, I mean impossible, because then who'd toss me those wonderful cues to give out about Petri wine?
Well, fella, you tossed yourself that one. But carry on.
You bet, Greg. Especially today, because there's something new about Petri. You know, the Petri family has been making fine wines for generations now. It's a heritage passed down from father to son, from father to son. And now, this art in winemaking has made possible the crowning achievement of the Petri family. For at last, Angelo Petri himself has developed a wine so superb, it stands out among the truly great wines of America. Yes, that great winemaker, Angelo Petri, has done what every maker of fine wines hopes to do. He has created a wine to which he can proudly put his own signature. Angelo Petri's signature bottle wine from California. What a wine. Words can't describe its wonderful fragrance and taste. I can only tell you that if you're hard to please about wine, this is the wine for you. Ask your dealer if he's received his allotment of Angelo Petri. Angelo Petri's signature bottle wine is available only in limited quantities. But if you find it, you'll enjoy the finest wine of a famous winemaker, Angelo Petri. Well, Greg, which story out of your casebook are you planning to tell us next week?
An adventure that took place under the big top of a San Francisco circus a few months ago, Harry. The story tells of a very colorful girl who trained snow leopards and of a sad clown whose first smile proved to be a smile of death. See you next Monday, Harry.
The Casebook of Gregory Hood is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher. Original music composed and played by Dean Fossler. Elliot Lewis plays the part of Gregory Hood, and Sanderson Taylor is played by Howard McNear. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. The Casebook of Gregory Hood comes to you from our Hollywood studio. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family.
Sergeant Heath, I tell you, this is ridiculous. 2 men murdered in the same way and apparently by the same person, and you say you haven't even a single clue. What kind of a homicide department is this?
It's a good one, Commissioner. Just give me a little time. These murders were only committed in the past 12 hours.
But the victims were newspapermen, Heath. Do you understand? Newspapermen. The papers they worked on will need us for days if we don't get results. I want fast work on this, do you hear me? Fast work and no alibis.
We're working on it, Commissioner. And the dead men weren't really newspapermen. They were critics. Dramatic critics.
Same thing. Somebody's making a joke out of this department. Killing 2 dramatic critics and leaving poetry pinned to their chests with a knife. Let's see those poems. Let's see them.
Here's the one we found on the first body, Commissioner, the body of Robert Carnes. But it's no clue. Believe me, it's no clue.
He was the leading critic, he always would insist, and that's the reason that I placed him first on my list. It's going to be an epidemic, that's what it's going to be. Give me the second poem, the one you found on Roger Dakin's body.
Yes, sir. Here you are.
As a first-rate critic, you did rate high, and the first-rate critic is the second to die. Oh, take it, Heath.
Yes,
take
sir.
both of these poems and get me the man who wrote them, and get him fast before he murders every critic in the city.
Are you busy, Mr. Markham? Very busy, I mean.
The district attorney is never too busy to talk to the homicide department chief. What is it, Heath?
Well, it's the commissioner. He's writing me on those critic murders. I can't do miracles. I've checked every clue. There's nothing I've found that's any good to me. Try and tell him that, though.
Did you ever think of this motive, Heath?
What's that?
There was a new play opened at the Rex Theater last night. Perhaps both of the critics were going to print bad notices. Perhaps somebody didn't want
You
those...
can stop right there, D.A. I checked that the first thing. The notices both critics wrote were great. I'm stumped, D.A. I don't even know where to look for a killer.
I see. You think that perhaps I might know someone?
You mean Philo Vance? Now listen, D.A., I don't want Vance in on this case. He's all I need for me to really blow my top.
Well, in that case, I won't call him. I thought for a moment that you might have been hinting that I do, but as long as you feel so strongly, why, I wouldn't think of it.
Oh, what's the use? Call him, D.A. Get him to go to work. That's the reason I came up to see you in the first place.
Really?
Poetry and murder. What a combination. Maybe Vance can figure out what it all means.
That's the story, Vance, all of it. Definitely interesting, isn't it?
I suppose so. Let me see now. The first murdered critic was Robert Carnes. Carnes. Isn't he the one that married Edna Bowley, the dancer?
Some years ago, I believe, Vance. Yes, he's the one.
And wasn't she being sponsored before her marriage by Mike Wilcox, the racket king?
Mike did have an interest in her. But he's hardly the poetry type, Vance. Don't forget those poems pinned to the chests of the two victims.
I haven't forgotten them. Markham, there's a wonderful art exhibit at the Madison Galleries this afternoon. I was going to take Ellen and visit there.
The Madison Gallery visit will be postponed because of my visit here?
Precisely. I've changed from the Madison to the Rogues Gallery. Markham, I'm going to see our friend Mike Wilcox.
My maid said you wanted to speak to me.
Yeah, lady. I'm Longfellow. I work for Mike Wilcox. He wants to see you.
Mike sent you here? Why?
Look, I don't ask the boss questions. I'm glad he got a job. Who else would hire a guy like me? 5 foot nothing on my tiptoes.
And they call you Longfellow? Rather quaint, isn't it?
Yeah, that's everybody's idea of a gag. Are we ready to go, lady?
Yes, but I don't see what Mike can want with me. After all, my husband has just been killed. It wouldn't do either of us any good if I was seen with Mike.
Lady, I don't know nothing about that. Mike says to bring you down, I'm going to bring you down. That's my way of keeping my job. Yeah, and my health.
If I move here, he'll jump me. Get into my king row. And I'm a dead Joe. But if I move in this square, he can't do nothing. So I move in this square. Yeah? Who is it?
Hello, Mr. Wilcox. I'm Philo Vance.
Oh, hi, Vance. You play checkers?
Yes, but I've no desire to play at the moment. Well, playing checkers with yourself, eh? That's a new one. Who's winning?
Me. I always win. Well, Vance, the boys downstairs says you wanted to see me. So I says if he wants to see me, let him come up. So you're up. And what do you want to see me about?
About the murder of Robert Carnes, the drama critic. The same person also killed another critic. But I'm not quite as interested in the second murder as I am in Carnes' death. You used to go with Carnes' present wife, didn't you?
Edna? Sure. What about her?
Nothing. Except that from what I've heard, this Carnes wasn't too kindly an individual. Maybe you resented the way he treated his wife.
And wrote them poems, too?
No, that I doubt very much. When did you last see Mrs. Carnes, Mr. Wilcox?
Oh, a couple of years ago. The way I figure, it'll be a couple of years before I see her again. Well, how's for a game of checkers, Vance? You look smart enough to be able to play checkers?
Thank you very much, but I'm sorry
hold it. Yeah?
I got it, boss. We're here.
Well, in a minute, Longy. I'll buzz you.
There's nothing you can tell me about Robert Carnes' murder, Mr. Wilcox?
Oh, no, not me. When I read about it, I says to myself, well, somebody must not like the critics, I said. Guess maybe that's so, huh?
Maybe. Both of them wrote their last notices and their death notices at the same time. Maybe there's some connection between the two.
There may be. I'm glad it ain't my business to find out. Well, you got time for one game, Vance? Just one game?
No, I think not. I'd better be moving along. Thanks, Wilcox. Maybe we'll meet again.
Okay, Longy, you can bring her in now.
All right, boss.
Let's see. Suppose I do move here. And he's going to jump me. And I knock off two of his guys like this. Not bad, not bad, not bad.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, beautiful. Come on in.
Me too, boss.
No, I don't want you, long fella. Only Mrs. Carnes.
Okay, I'll be out here with the boys.
It's been a long time, hasn't it, Mike?
Too long, beautiful. I had to talk to you. I'm sorry I had to send Longfellow for you, but I couldn't go up to your place while with the cops and all hanging around. Maybe even tapping the phones.
I understand, Mike. How have things been with you?
Never better. But we got to talk about you. When I heard about your husband getting knocked off, I says to myself, that dirty rat figured to get it. I've kept pretty good track how he was breaking you down. Beautiful, you need something? Dough, a mouthpiece? Anything at all?
Do you think that I...
Me, I ain't the thinking type, baby. I just got the same yen for you that I always had. And nobody's gonna push you around. Ever.
I don't need anything, Mike, but thanks. Thanks just the same. Mike, it wasn't you who had Robert. You didn't...
Just, relax, baby. Relax. I'm not even interested in who knocked your husband off. So I'll make a deal with you, huh? You don't ask me any questions. I don't ask you none.
Mr. Vance's office. Miss Deering speaking.
Ellen, this is Vance.
Oh, where have you been, Mr. Vance? People have been calling right and left.
I don't want to know anything about calls right now. Listen, Ellen, get your hat. We're going to the theater.
Theater at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. What's happening there at this time?
Nothing very much, unless I can make something happen. The Rex Theater in half an hour. I'll be waiting.
I don't mind going to a theater when nothing's on the stage, Vance. But must we wait in the lobby? And why did you bring me down here, please?
Because this is as good a place as any to start working on those poetic murders.
Oh?
Let me think a moment. A new play opened here last night. Robert Carnes and the other critics were here, no question about that. Both of the murdered critics, Robert Carnes and Roger Dakins, left and wrote excellent reviews of the show.
Well, that stops the suggestion I was going to make. Stops it just like that.
If it were that simple, Ellen, Markham would never have called me in. I want to get a look at the seats the critics sat in. That might mean something.
Hello there, Vance.
Sibbleton. How are you, Sibbleton? Well, I hear you have a hit.
It's the finest play I've ever produced. Trying to buy some tickets?
Not at the moment. Miss Deering, may I present Mr. Sibbleton?
How do you do, Mr. Sibbleton?
Sibbleton, I'd like to go into the theater for a moment, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, I guess, Vance. I just don't understand.
I'm working on the murder of those two critics. Oh. I just want to look at their seats. They were both here last night.
Yes, they were. I don't know what you expect to find, but come on in. I'll get the door. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ellen.
Thank you. Which way, Mr. Sibbleton?
Straight ahead and down the middle aisle.
An empty theater's an imposing sight, don't you think, Ellen?
It is, I suppose, but not for a producer who thinks he has a hit. Then it's a catastrophe.
Miss Deering is right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't have that worry, not with this show. Right down this aisle.
Right. By the way, it seems to me that I recall Robert Carnes panning your last show, Sibbleton.
Oh, he wasn't the only one. You see, we have every critic in town here on opening nights, from newspapers, magazines, trade papers. And practically every one of them took a crack at that last epic of mine.
Including Roger Dakins?
Well, every time Carnes pans anything, Dakins does too. Or rather did. Poor fellow. In fact, the trio of Carnes, Dakins, and Moore was something every producer had nightmares about. Well, here we are, then.
Oh, good seats. Who's Moore?
Edward Moore. He's on the Chronicle.
Oh, yes.
He and Carnes and Dakins liked practically nothing this season. So this seat on the aisle was Robert Carnes, eh, Sibbleton?
That's right. Dakins sat next to him, and Moore next to Dakins.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
Are all the seats in these few rows reserved for the press on opening nights?
Oh, all of them except the first 5 seats in row E. Those are mine for every performance. We call them house seats. They're for me and my personal friends.
You certainly give away a lot of seats on opening night, Sibbleton.
It must be worth it. Look at all the great publicity he gets.
When the show is good, that is.
Yes. Sibbleton, how well did you know Carnes?
Oh, not very. He made sure of that. He made it a rule never to socialize with producers. Claimed it might influence his judgment.
Not bad reasoning. I've just been thinking of something. I wonder if Edward Moore would be at his newspaper at about this time.
Moore, the third member of the critics' trio?
Yes. Think so, Sibbleton?
I haven't the slightest idea. We could go back to my office and call, if you like.
Yes, I think I...
Is that you, Vance?
Why, it's Mr. Markham.
I'm here, Markham, right down the center aisle.
Right. Be with you in just a few seconds.
Right. Do you know Mr. Markham, Sibbleton?
District attorney? Oh, I know him socially, of course.
Hello, Vance. Ellen.
Hello, Markham.
Hello, Mr. Markham.
Oh, hello, Sibbleton.
Hello, Mr. Markham. Nice to see you again.
What's going on, Markham? You just interrupted a pilgrimage to the telephone. I thought I'd try to get a lead on the 2 poetic murders from Edward Moore.
You can stop right here, then, Vance. Moore was found dead this afternoon with a knife in his heart and one of those silly poems pinned to his chest.
Oh, no.
He has been dead for quite some time. I'm glad you left word that you'd be here, Vance. I knew you wanted to be kept informed, so I came down myself.
Moore dead, too.
Vance, what is all this?
Frankly, I don't know. What was written on the third note, Markham?
I'll read it to you. The curtain's down. Death slams the door. The play thus ends with no encore. Vance, what's happening in this city of ours?
You know what's happening in this city? A murderer is going to town.
This is District Attorney Markham. 3 of this city's leading dramatic critics have been murdered, and all 3 had bits of poetry pinned to their chests when found. The poems have proved no clue at all to any of us, including Philo Vance, who has discovered only that the wife of Robert Carnes, first of the critics to die, was the former girlfriend of Mike Wilcox, racketeer. Sergeant Heath, however, has picked up a character named Longfellow, diminutive stooge for Wilcox, and Vance and I are waiting for him in my office.
To be very practical about these murders, Markham, we're not doing very well.
We might be doing wonderfully when Heath gets here. He's picked up that hired hand of Mike Wilcox's, you know.
I hope he hasn't found the killer, Markham.
Huh?
Oh, not that I begrudge Heath the glory of tracking down our murderer. It's just that this is the first case I've worked on this long without even denting. I'd hate for it to turn out so simple after all that.
I wouldn't hate it at all, Vance. With due respect to your great admiration for the unusual in crime, it's the ordinary criminal that makes the work of a district attorney easier.
I know what you mean. I guess I was being a bit self-centered.
All right, go on, get in there.
Yeah, you don't have to push. I'm getting.
Get in that chair, sit down, and don't get up until I tell you to.
You sure are tough around this place. Stop or I'll yawn right in your face.
Sit down and shut up. Well, here he is, D.A., the guy that knifed those 3 critics. His name is Longfellow.
Really? Why'd you do it, Longfellow?
This guy's slightly off the beam. I think he's living in a dream.
Get this, D.A. He worked for Mike Wilcox. Everybody knows what a torch Mike was carrying for Edna Boley when she married Robert Carnes. Carnes was pretty tough on the gal. Everybody knows that, too. So Mike sent Longfellow to bump Carnes.
Really?
Sure. Listen, D.A., they call this punk Longfellow. Everybody thinks they do that as a gag on account of he's so small. Only I find out they do it because he's spouting poetry all the time.
Yes?
Well, don't you get it? Spouting poetry. Those notes on the dead bodies. Poetry. This mug wanted everybody in the mob to know he knocked off Carnes and the other 2, so he put poems on them. Simple.
Listen to him rave. Hey, D.A., you gonna let this flatfoot pin a bum rap on me? I never killed nobody. I never used a knife in my life.
That speaks well for your record, but very badly for your manners.
Huh?
Never mind Vance, Longfellow. I don't... Oh, leaving Vance?
I'm afraid I must tear myself away. I have an appointment with a very charming young lady, Miss Edna Carnes. Maybe you have the murderer, Sergeant Heath. If so, you can keep him. But I have an appointment, and it's quite necessary that I keep it.
Yeah? Come in.
Well, Wilcox. Surprised to find you here.
You don't look it, Vance. Don't mind me, I'm just playing some solitaire.
I understood that Mrs. Edna Carnes lived here. You're putting the Red Queen on a Red King.
Don't kibitz, Vance. Sit down and play some gin if you want, but don't kibitz. How about a game of gin?
I'd just as soon not right now, thanks.
Ah, come on. I gotta play with somebody. Always at solitaire. Can't find nobody to play with.
Maybe your friends wouldn't like what happened to them if they were to win.
Okay, Vance, if that's the way you want it. What are you doing here?
Paying a call on Mrs. Carnes. Where is she?
She ain't home. She wouldn't want to see you even if she was home. Got you on? I'll take that. You could leave any time now, Vance. It'd be all right with me. Yeah?
Hello, is Mr. Philo Vance there, please?
Yeah, he's here. For you, Vance.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Vance? Ellen. I called Markham and he told me where you were. Hop right back here, Vance. On the double.
I'm sorry, Ellen. I'll be detained here for a while. I'm waiting for Mrs. Carnes to return home.
She's not going to return home, Vance. She's here, right here in your office, and she's going to wait here until you get back.
Go ahead, Mrs. Carnes. Tell me anything you think might help.
Mr. Vance, has it bothered you at all that there were 2 other critics murdered right after my husband was killed?
Quite a bit, Mrs. Carnes. Frankly, I haven't the slightest idea why.
I have. My husband's best friends were Roger Dakins and Edward Moore. The night he was murdered, I found a note in the library reading, "If anything happens to me, Roger or Edward will know who did it."
And you destroyed that note?
Yes. I didn't want the police to question them. The murderer did me a favor, Mr. Vance. You don't know what a life I've led with my husband. He was impossible, completely impossible. If he hadn't threatened me, I'd have left him years ago.
I see. Well, this is very interesting, Mrs. Carnes. Your husband probably told his murderer that it would do him no good to kill him because his two friends would go to the police. There was nothing for the killer to do then but wipe out Dakins and Moore.
I know that now.
Well, Mrs. Carnes, your actions have certainly confused us. I understood the pleasant front your husband put up in public was just a mask, but
Everything about him was either cruel or false, from the name Robert Carnes to the brilliant words he let drop carelessly, even though he'd spent half the night thinking them up. Oh, I couldn't stand him. I just couldn't.
I was thinking that when I made the appointment to see you. I thought maybe you'd killed him.
Me? But I came down here to tell you all this. Doesn't that clear me? I couldn't see you at the apartment. Mike was there, so I came down to your office. That must clear me.
Not necessarily, Mrs. Carnes. You might have given me some information just to throw me off. However, I'm not going to detain you. You may leave if you like. Miss Deering.
Yes, Mr. Vance.
Mrs. Carnes is leaving.
I'm sorry you think the way you do, Mr. Vance. I assure you I came down to see you with only one purpose.
Thank you for coming, Mrs. Carnes. We'll meet again. Goodbye.
This way, Mrs. Carnes, please.
Thank you. Goodbye, Mr. Vance.
Goodbye. Don't go, Miss Deering.
Goodbye, Mrs. Carnes. Yes, Vance, what is it?
We're finally making progress, Ellen. I know now why all three critics were murdered, and that there will be no more killings, at least by the same murderer.
Well, that's good news to any prospective victims. What else is up?
Mrs. Carnes just let drop something I didn't know.
Oh?
She said that Robert Carnes was not his right name. He probably had it changed legally years ago. Find out what his name used to be, Ellen. I've got a hunch it's going to lead to something very important. You don't mind my dropping into your office at this time, do you, Mr. Silverton?
Not at all, Vance. I'm glad to be of service. You want to see the show tonight? I can let you have my house seats.
Some other time, perhaps, but not tonight, Mr. Silverton. Right. You told me you didn't know Roger Carnes socially.
That's right, I didn't.
Well, this is very strange, then. You have an odd name, Sibbleton. Very unusual.
I suppose that's right.
My secretary found out that Roger Carnes' real name was Sibbleton. Was he a relation?
My brother. Older brother. Only I never talked about that. He was nobody to be proud of.
So I've heard from a number of sources. What did he have on you, Mr. Sibbleton?
What?
Must have been something very important for you to have killed him to keep him quiet.
You think I killed him?
Not exactly. I know you did. You see these 2 tickets for your theater, Mr. Sibbleton? They were dropped at the scene of your brother's murder.
And they prove I killed him? Oh, now, Vance.
Oh, but they do. You see, these tickets are house seats. Your house seats. The ones that are reserved for you. You told me about them in the theater yesterday, remember? First 5 seats in row E. That's what these are for.
Let me have them.
There's a gun in that drawer, I presume.
Not anymore, there isn't. It's in my hand. I'm sorry about this, Vance. I liked you.
Well enough to put that gun away?
Hardly.
Well, I don't blame you. Self-preservation is still the primary law of human motivation. By the way, I know why you killed Dakins and Moore. But why did you kill your brother?
Why did Cain kill Abel? My brother and I had an argument. A terrible argument. He was about to write a magazine article telling a lot of things about me that are best forgotten. They happened years ago, before we came to this country. Robert called me up to taunt me about it, and I warned him not to write it.
That's another form of self-preservation. I rather thought it was something like that. Your poetry idea was very brilliant, Sibbleton. You knew about Mike Wilcox and your brother's wife, didn't you?
Of course. Everybody knew that.
You also knew Wilcox had a little accomplice with a rather odd name of Longfellow, who on occasion was addicted to poetry. You thought the police would go to Wilcox and look no further than his hireling Longfellow.
You know I've got to kill you, Vance. Kill you now.
No poetry?
No poetry.
I'm sorry. I rather relished the wedding of the muse and murder. Markham, Heath, you can come in now.
What? All right, drop that gun. Drop it fast. Come on in, boys.
Vance. You had the police outside all the time. I
You
ought
ought to drop that gun for one thing, Simpleton. Sergeant Heath doesn't like to be kept waiting.
All right, get him outside, boys. He got his gun.
Let me go. Let go.
Hello, Markham.
Well, Vance, well, you've done your part, and very well, too. From here on in, I'll take it and make certain, as the book has it, that justice triumphs.
Do that, Markham. And in this case, wouldn't you say that it was poetic justice?
Well, Vance, since you wound up the poetic murder case, don't you think we ought to close up shop for the day?
Not especially, Ellen. You know, there still is the possibility that Markham might call.
At this hour? It's late, you know.
At last reports, murderers weren't keeping office hours.
I understand. The only thing I don't understand is how a murderer as clever as this Silverton could have been careless enough to drop a pair of theater tickets at the scene of the first murder.
Oh, he didn't drop any tickets.
Well, you told me that's how he started talking.
I told him I found the tickets, Ellen. In fact, I even waved a couple of tickets in front of his face. Only they were opera tickets that I'd gotten for us for next week.
Why, Vance, you and the truth are becoming slight strangers of late.
When you're trying to trap a murderer, Ellen, any means is fair, in my opinion. By the way, I've just composed a little couplet. Like to hear it?
Definitely.
Very well, then. The last chapter's written. The last words, my friend, are the poetic murder case is over. We've come to the end.
What's the matter? What is it?
Another case for Nick Carter, master detective.
Yes, it's another case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction. Nick Carter, master detective. Tonight's curious adventure...
An angle on murder. For Nick Carter and the mystery of the mutilated bullet.
I grabbed her, and I wound my fingers around her throat. And I squeezed her windpipe tight. Tighter and tighter.
What's the matter, Patsy?
Oh, Nick, put the lights on.
All right.
And I said I wanted to hear the recorded confession you made of that mad murderer who killed his wife. I didn't think I'd have to listen to it in the dark.
Well, that's the way we got him to confess in the first place. Oh, I'll take it, Patsy.
Okay, Nick.
Nick Carter's office.
I'd like to talk to Mr. Nicholas Carter.
This is Nick Carter speaking.
Oh, hello, Nick. This is John Hamill of the Bankers Associates.
Oh, hello, John. How have you been?
Nick, I'm in trouble. I can't discuss it over the phone. How soon can you meet me?
Where?
On West Street, around the corner from the Greystone building, where my offices are. Please get there as fast as you can.
All right, John. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Now, Scubby, you understand exactly what you're to do?
Yeah, Nick.
Okay. I'll see you later. I've got a date in this corner.
Okay, Nick. I'll be seeing you.
Hey, look at that car coming up the street, would you?
Hey, Nick, watch out! That car is headed right at you! Jump, Nick! Oh, did he hit you, Nick? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Oh, gee, that was close. It almost seemed like whoever was driving that car did that on purpose.
Wouldn't be at all surprised, Scubby. I think somebody is interested in preventing me from keeping my appointment.
Hey, look, maybe I better stay with you, Nick.
No, I've got something else for you to do, Scubby. I got the number in that car. Hop down to the license bureau and find out who it belongs to. Then wait for me at the office.
Oh, Nick. Sorry I'm so late.
Oh, hello, John. I've been on this corner waiting for you for 20 minutes. Where have you been?
Trying to get here without anyone seeing me.
Well, why all the mystery? What's up?
Wait a minute, Nick. Here, get back in this doorway, quick. Don't let him see us.
Well, who was that? Somebody trailing you?
I don't know. I never saw him before.
Well, then why'd you want to dodge him? You haven't done anything wrong, have you?
No, Nick. Absolutely nothing. Now listen, I don't want the police in on this just yet, if I can help it. A banking firm like mine can't stand any unnecessary notoriety.
Well, yes, I know, John, but what's this all about?
Well, let me explain. I wanted to tell you out here where I can be sure no one will hear us. You see, Nick, several days ago I discovered there's a serious shortage on our books. Somebody has been taking money from the accounts, and I'm almost sure I know who it is. I've called a meeting of my 4 partners. They're upstairs in my office waiting for me right now to have a showdown before the stockholders find out. That's why I asked you to come over here, Nick. You may have to make an arrest tonight.
Well, you don't want a detective, John. You want a cop.
No, you're wrong, Nick. I want you. Please come along.
Well, perhaps you better wait down the lobby while I go up and see if everything's all right. That is safe for you to come on.
No, Nick. There's no need for that.
All right,
I
John.
want to be in on the showdown. Come on.
Anything you say. And if you really feel that something dangerous is in the wind, I think I should go up there first and look around. Then if everything's okay, let you know.
No. I want to go up now and get it over with.
Well, you insist.
I do, Nick. Oh, I know it's pretty late, but I waited purposely till the offices were closed to avoid any publicity. This whole business requires the greatest secrecy.
24th floor.
Oh, this is our floor, Nick.
After you, John.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of dark in this hallway, isn't it?
Yes, the lighting isn't any too good here, but...
John, are you hurt bad?
What is it? What's happened? Why is it John?
Quiet, please, quiet. Gentlemen, John Hamill is dead.
John Hamill's dead, but that's terrible, terrible. How did it happen?
That's what I want to know. You seem to know him. Who are you?
Well, I could ask you the same question. Who are you?
I'm Nick Carter.
Nick Carter, the detective?
Yes.
Oh, well, my name's Tom Burdick. I'm one of Hamill's partners, and these are the others.
Mr. Carter, I'm Emil Garrick, and this is Arthur Nelson and Alan Cornish.
How do you do, Mr. Carter?
You're Cornish, huh?
Yes, Mr. Carter.
What do you know about this?
Nothing. I was in my office all the time.
No, that's not true, Cornish. I saw you go out in the hall just a few seconds before Hamill was shot.
That right, Cornish?
Yes, I did go out for a moment. But when the shot was fired, I was back in my office. But why question me? Why don't you ask Burdick where he was, or Nelson or Garrick?
Well, I can easily explain where Mr. Nelson and I were. We were both together in my office preparing some papers for tonight's meeting.
That's right, Mr. Carter. I was with Mr. Garrick.
Which of you men belong to which office?
Well, you can see the layout yourself, Mr. Carter. They all open off this L-shaped corridor. First comes Nelson's office, then Burdick's. They're on the long leg of the L. Then on the corner at the end is Cornish's office, directly in line with the corridor to the elevator.
And Garrick's office is around the corner on the short leg of the L.
That's right.
That's out of sight of the elevator completely, isn't it?
Sure, you can't even see the corridor from my office.
So I see. Then, Cornish, your office is the only one which faces the corridor. I'd like to have a look at it.
All right. This way. This is my office, Mr. Carter.
Peculiar order here. Let's see. Well, what have we here in this umbrella stand? A gun.
A what?
And it's been fired very recently. I should say, gentlemen, this was the murder weapon.
That's Mr. Cornish's umbrella stand.
What do you know about this, Cornish?
I don't know anything about it.
But that gun belongs to Mr. Cornish.
That's right, Mr. Carter. I've seen it in his desk many times. I recognize that fancy handle.
Say, what are you fellows trying to do? Well, sure, it's my gun, but I haven't seen it for 3 days. Someone stole it out of my desk, Mr. Carter.
Why didn't you report it to the police?
Because I didn't carry a permit for it. I was afraid of getting in trouble.
Cornish, I regret that appearances are against you. I'm afraid I'll have to turn you over to the police.
You won't turn me over to the police?
Well, what happened to the light? Cornish done him out.
Turn those lights on, somebody.
There you are, Mr. Carter.
There he goes, Carter. It's Cornish. He's escaping down the hall.
Stop, Cornish. Stop or I'll shoot. You see, Patsy, I was right with Hamill when he was murdered. What I can't figure out was how he was shot when there was no one else in the hall with us.
Don't ask me, Nick.
And here's something else. I heard only one shot fired, but Cornish's gun had 3 empty shells. And to top it all off, here's the bullet that killed Hamill. The coroner gave it to me. Notice how it's all banged up?
Yes, how did that happen?
I wish I knew. Patsy, if I knew the answer to that, I think I know the answer to this whole case. Until we find Cornish. Oh, I'll get it.
Hello, Carter?
Yes, this is Nick Carter.
Oh, this is Alan Cornish. I suppose I'm a fool for calling you up, Carter, but I need help. I'm desperate and I can't go to the police. You've got to help me prove I didn't kill Hamill.
Why'd you run away, Cornish?
Because I was scared. Lucky for me you didn't hit me.
Don't worry, Cornish. If I'd really wanted to hit you, I would have. Where are you now?
I'll tell you, but you've got to promise to come alone. If you don't,
The only thing I'll promise you is that I won't do anything till after I've talked to you. Now, what's the address?
1813 Oak Street. Come right over. I'll be waiting for you.
Okay, sit tight. I'll be there.
You mean we'll be there? I'm sick of sitting around here. I'm going with you.
"1813 Oak Street. This is it, Betsy.
Gosh, what a creepy-looking place.
Certainly not very attractive. Well, come on, let's go in.
Maybe he's not here.
Said he'd be here. Wonder if... Well, the door's open.
Should we go in?
We can't keep our date with Cornish if we don't.
Gosh, it's dark in here. Nick, do you suppose it could be a trap?
You never can be quite sure, Patsy. Here's the door. Stand behind me.
Do you see anything in there, Nick?
Wait till I get my flashlight. No. Looks deserted. Oh, come on. Let's try another room.
Gee, this place gives me the jitters. It's practically deserted.
Maybe he's in here. Stand back, Patsy. No, nothing in there.
Maybe he got scared after he called you and slipped away.
We'll soon find out. There's another door. Over there.
Look, Nick. Is that...
Yes. He's hanged himself.
Well, Nick, I don't know why he came back to the office again tonight. Cornish is dead. I guess that closes the case.
Patsy, I'm not satisfied. When I talked to him on the phone, he certainly didn't sound like a man who was going to kill himself. When a man wants to prove himself innocent, he doesn't commit suicide. No, Patsy, there's something about that hanging that's bothering me, and I can't lay my finger on it.
You probably figured that was the best way out. To kick over the chair and end it all.
Patsy, remind me to give you a raise.
And what did I do?
I've got it. Look, Patsy, Cornish was a short man.
Well, so what?
Patsy, Cornish couldn't have hanged himself.
Well, why not?
Don't you remember, Patsy? The only furniture in that room was a bed. And Cornish was so short he never could reach that noose from the bed where it was.
Of course, Nick. The bed was on the other side of the room.
Patsy, Cornish was murdered, which eliminates him as a suspect. Probably he was killed by the same man who killed Hamill.
Oh, but who, Nick? Who?
Wish I knew. Wish I knew.
Hiya, Nick. Hiya, Patsy.
All of it isn't the missing link.
Scubby, did you find out anything about that car that nearly ran me down this afternoon?
Oh, you bet, Nick.
Good.
But what a time I've been having. Wait till you hear what I have to tell you.
Well?
I had to get the license commissioner out of bed to get it, but, oh, boy, it was worth it. Hey, do you know who that car belongs to? Tom Burdick, Hamill's partner.
Good boy, Scubby. Did you get his address, too?
Yeah, some deserted neck of the woods out in Long Island. I've got the address here somewhere.
Fine. Come on, Scubby. You and I are going to pay him a visit. You know, Scubby, the more I think of it, the more it looks as if Tom Burdick might be mixed up in this somewhere.
Oh, I hope so, Nick. Otherwise, we're using up a lot of gas in this jalopy of mine for nothing. Hey, have you noticed anything funny, Nick?
You mean that car that's been trailing us for the last few minutes?
That's it. What do you make of it, Nick?
I don't know, Scubby. But I think we'll be finding out quickly enough. They're overtaking us. Better step on it.
Okay, Nick. Here we go. How are we doing?
Not so good, Scubby. They're still gaining on us. Can you give her any more gas?
I'll try. There. They still coming up?
Yes, Scubby. And fast. Duck, Scubby. They're shooting at us.
You're telling me?
Watch it. Here they come.
Well, I've done all I can, Nick. This old bus won't go any faster.
Well, let's try an old trick, Scubby. When they get close to us, slam on your brakes and pull over to the side of the road.
Yeah?
They won't be expecting that. It may throw them completely off balance and spoil their aim.
Okay, Nick. You say when.
Now, pull over.
Okay. Oh, boy. That was a close one. Are you all right, Nick?
Yeah. Well, we won't see them anymore for a while. Get going, Scubby. We got to make up for lost time.
Well, Nick, I've got to hand it to you. You have the darndest way of getting into a cellar.
Well, we had to get into Verdick's house somehow. This cellar with its trick entrance from the garage looked like the safest way. Especially with those two vicious-looking dogs posted at both the front and back doors to the house.
Well, they sure were big ones, too. I'd hate to meet one of them. Hey, where do you think this is going to lead us to, Nick?
We should find a stairway going upstairs, unless I'm very much mistaken.
Yeah?
Yeah. Here's one. All right, let's go up. But careful.
All right, Nick, you lead the way. I'm with you.
Here's the door.
Well, I hope it's open. No, darn it, it's locked.
I'll soon fix that. There. All right, Scubby, come on. Oh, wait. Someone's coming into the room, Scubby. Get back. We can hear through the crack of the door. I'll leave it open a little.
Well, Mrs. Burdick, I'm certainly glad you called me up. I'm only too happy to be here at a time like this. After all, we're practically neighbors, aren't we?
Oh, I just had to talk to someone, Mr. Garrick. I'm so worried about Tom and those horrible things that have been happening at the office. What do you make of all this?
Well, I wouldn't worry about it too much, Mrs. Burdick. Tom can take care of himself, if he has to.
What do you mean, Mr. Garrick?
Oh, nothing. But he has been acting rather strangely lately.
Well, that's just it. I'm so worried. I haven't seen or heard from him all day. He's never been so late coming home from the office. Why, it's after 11.
Oh, there's really nothing to worry about, Mrs. Burdick, even in a case like this. Of course, it looks very peculiar for Tom to be missing his way, especially at this particular time.
Mr. Garrick, you don't think Tom had anything to do with all this sort of...
Well, Mrs. Burdick, I like Tom very much. I would hate to think that Tom had anything to do with this murder. Of course,
Well, Scubby, we don't seem to be learning much this way. Might as well go in and let him know we're here.
Sure, Nick.
Good evening, Mr. Garrick.
Why, Mr. Carter, what are you doing here?
I just came along with one of my assistants, Scubby Wilson, to talk to Mr. Burdick. We came in this way because we didn't want to disturb the dogs.
Oh, really? Who are you?
Oh, Mrs. Burdick, this is Mr. Nick Carter. He's in charge of investigating Hamill's death.
Mr. Carter, the detective? Nothing's happened to Tom, has it?
I don't believe so, Mrs. Burdick. I just want to ask him a few questions when he arrives.
Well, maybe that's why Tom hasn't come home. Maybe he's afraid of...
Maybe that's he now.
Wait, I'll go look out the window to see if that's his car.
Carter, I must warn you to be careful. Burdick's a dangerous man.
Tom, Nick Carter's here.
Please, Mrs. Burdick,
Nick
come away from that
Carter's
window.
here to see you.
You won't do him any good that way, Mrs. Burdick. Stop it, you hear me? Please.
Hey, that's his car, Mr. Carter. Look, he's getting away.
Come on, Scubby, let's get after him.
Okay. Wait, I'll go with you, Carter.
Hurry up.
I want to know why he runs away when he hears my name.
I hope this car of yours stays on the road, Carter.
Don't worry about it, Mr. Garrick.
Carter, I didn't want to say too much in front of Mrs. Burdick, but we've all been afraid of Burdick.
All right. Scubby, just keep your foot on that throttle and keep after him.
Oh, boy, we sure made that one on two wheels. Nick, I'm pushing this crate as fast as she'll go, but we don't seem to be getting any closer. That car of Burdick's can sure step.
As long as we hang on and don't lose him, I'll be satisfied.
Hey, watch it. We're coming to a railroad crossing.
So I see. Well, maybe we can head him off now. If Burdick tries to beat that limiter to the crossing, he's crazy.
Look, Carter, I think he's going to try to make it.
He can't do it. He'll be killed.
Oh, Nick, that nurse that just came out of the operating room is signaling you.
Oh, yes. She wants me to go into Burdick. You wait for me here, Scubby.
Okay, Nick.
Burdick, can you hear me?
Yes, Carter. I can hear you. Carter, I'm a dying man.
Yes, I know.
I swear to you, I didn't kill Hamill or Cornish.
Then why did you try to run me down with your car this afternoon?
Carter, I didn't do that. All I know is that for several hours this afternoon, My car was mysteriously missing. I didn't find it again till I started home this evening.
Bertie, why did you run away from your home tonight when your wife told you we were there? And how about the securities we found on you after the wreck?
It wasn't you. It was securities. I took them so that...
Yes, Burdick? Why did you take them?
I took them so I could keep him from stealing them.
Who? Burdick, who? Burdick, who's he?
Carter. Front office. Bottom drawer of desk. Something will lead you to murder.
Yes, Burdick? Who's the murderer?
He's...
Burdick. Burdick. Oh, poor chap. If you'd spoken sooner, you might have lived longer.
Nick. Oh, Nick, I got here as quick as I could. Have you found anything yet?
I think so. Scubby Burdick wasn't lying to me. I found this in the bottom drawer of the desk in the front office here.
A book. Well, is that what Burdick meant?
Just look at that title.
Studies of various angles of bullets in flight. Well, so what, Nick?
Scubby, that's the way Hamill was killed. It all adds up perfectly. Now I know why I heard only one shot when I found 3 empty shells in the murder weapon. 3 shots were fired, but 2 of them were fired at a different time from the third.
Well, do you know where the other 2 bullets are, Nick?
I do. Follow me out in the hall and I'll show you.
Yeah?
You see, Scubby, as soon as I found that book in the flight of bullets, I did a bit of looking around, and I finally found them.
Well, where are they? In the office here?
No, Scubby, in the corridor. Right over there in that dark corner, embedded in the wall beside the elevator shaft, about 6 feet from where Hamill was killed.
Well, what are they doing over there?
Scubby, this was a very ingenious crime. And if you watch carefully, I'll show you just how ingenious it really was. Now, you notice that Cornish's office is the only one facing the corridor leading from the elevator.
Yeah? So what?
Well, in order to shoot someone coming down the hall, the murderer, if he were in any office but Cornish's, would have to step from his office out into this corridor and be seen, right?
Yeah, right.
But our murderer was very clever. I got the answer when I located the book, and when I found these embedded in the wall beside the elevator shaft.
The 2 missing bullets.
Right.
Well, hey, they're all banged up.
Precisely, just like the murder bullet. And that's what gave me the answer. You see, Scubby,
Yeah?
the murderer never left his office. He stood inside the front office, the one around the corner, on the lower leg of the L-shaped corridor, and aimed at that steel pillar built into the wall over there. When the bullet hit the steel face of the pillar, it was deflected into Hamill's lungs. Look here. You see these marks on the face of the pillar here?
Where? Oh, yeah.
Those are the bullet marks.
Oh, well, gosh, Nick, that's fantastic. Hey, are you sure you're right?
Positive. Don't you see, Scubby? That explains the other 2 shots that were fired. They weren't fired at Hamill, and they weren't fired at the time the murder was committed. They were practice shots used by the murderer to be sure he had the correct angle from which to shoot Hamill.
Gosh, Nick, I've certainly got to hand it to you.
Yes, but we still have to get the murderer.
But how? And who is it, Nick?
I rather think that if we step back in the office and wait, we'll find out soon enough, Scubby.
Well, what do you mean, Nick?
I mean that whoever it is will be in this office within the next few minutes, because after my discoveries, I made a couple of phone calls, and I invited the 2 remaining partners to meet me here.
Shh. Here comes someone now.
Oh.
Oh, how do you do, gentlemen?
Oh, hello, Garrick.
I got your phone call, Carter, and I got here as fast as I could.
Garrick, have you seen this book before?
Studies of various angles of bullets in flight. Why, yes. Now that I think of it, I think I have.
Does it belong to you?
No, it doesn't. But I remember that one day when I was with Mr. Nelson, he stopped in front of a bookshop and looked at it. Rather closely now that I think of it. Yes, I'm sure it was Nelson.
Very interesting. Now tell me, Mr. Garrick, when the murder was committed, are you positive that you and Mr. Nelson were in this office together?
That's right, Mr. Carter.
Can you show me exactly where each of you stood at the time the shot was fired?
Well, now let me see. I was here, facing the window, and Nelson was, standing right about here by the door.
Mm-hmm. I see. Did you notice in which direction he was facing at the time?
Yes, I remember. This way, facing the corridor.
In other words, the way he was standing, you could see him only in profile.
That's right.
Well, there's no question but that's how it was done, Scubby. The murderer planted himself in this office so that he could establish a strong alibi. He then took the gun from his pocket, unseen by the other person in the room, who could see him only in profile, and then fired it at that steel pillar. Then as he ran into the corridor with the rest, after Hamill was dead, he dropped the gun into the umbrella stand in front of Cornish's office.
Well, Carter, do you mean that Nelson is the one
How
who...
do you do, gentlemen? Did I hear my name mentioned?
Yes, Nelson, you did. Why did you kill Hamill and Cornish?
Please, Garrick, don't be ridiculous.
Oh, Nelson, does this book look familiar to you?
This book? No, I can't say that it does.
You sure you'd never seen this book before?
Now that you mention it, I may have glanced at it in a bookshop at one time or another, but then I look over a lot of books. I like to browse.
I see. Nelson, see how you approve of this story of Hamill's murder.
Yes?
The killer knew of Cornish's criminal record, and he figured he could embezzle some of the firm's money and pin it on an innocent man. Then when he found out that Hamill was becoming suspicious and was having the accounts checked, he became panicky and afraid that it might not work out the way he had planned. So he decided to kill Hamill. Then when he happened to overhear Hamill's conversation with me over the telephone, he hurriedly borrowed Burdick's car without Burdick's knowledge and tried to get rid of me.
That's an interesting way out, Mr. Carter. Have you also a theory as to who the killer is?
I have. By the process of elimination, it has to be either you or Mr. Garrick or an unknown.
And I've already proved that I didn't do it.
It must have been an unknown then, Mr. Carter. I certainly didn't kill Hamill. I had nothing to do with the murder. When the shot was fired, I was right here in this room with Mr. Garrick. He can testify to that.
He has already, Mr. Nelson.
In fact, Mr. Carter, I was standing right here facing the window when the shot was fired.
Oh, no. That's where I was, Mr. Carter, standing there at the window.
Now, please, Garrick.
Please,
now,
gentlemen, please. You don't have to argue about it. I know who was at the window, and I know who fired the fatal shot. Scubby, take a look at the flyleaf of this book.
Well, what are they, Nick? They look like the scribbles that some guys draw when they have nothing else to do. Oh, doodles, they call them.
Exactly. While I was looking through the various offices, I found some papers with these same doodling marks on them in one of the desks. And these marks were made by the murderer. Garrick, I arrest you for the murder...
He's got a gun!
Well, Scubby, pick up the pieces.
Oh, boy.
There's the murderer, Garrick. He's also the man who tried to murder you and me last night on the road to Burdick's home.
Well, I'll be...
You see, Scubby, Burdick has his suspicions about Garrick. That's why we found those securities on him. He took them so that they wouldn't fall into Garrick's hands. He'd suddenly found out that Garrick was an unscrupulous crook. And that was the reason he ran when Mrs. Burdick called him. He saw Garrick at the window and was afraid of him.
Well, Nick, I must say he had me fooled when he said that Nelson was standing at the door of the office here when he was really there himself.
Yes, in telling us who was in this office, our clever murderer just reversed the positions in which he and Mr. Nelson were standing when the murder was committed. But once I saw the marks on that flyleaf, I knew who stood where. And that's why I had Nelson come up here, to force Garrick's hand.
Well, Nick, one way's as good as another as long as you get results. And you always seem to do that.
So you finally decided to come back, did you?
Yes, Patsy, it's all over. Well, I think you can go home now.
Why, Mr. Carter, are you sure you can spare me?
Why not?
You've been so busy on this case all night, Mr. Carter, you may not have noticed that it is now a new day. And a good secretary is always on the job the first thing in the morning. Shall I take a letter, Mr. Carter?
This was another strange experience of Nick Carter, Master Detective, called An Angle on Murder, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Mutilated Bullet. Another of the curious adventures of Nick Carter, which are brought to you by WOR Mutual. And now, Nick, what's next week's story all about?
Well, when this case was first brought to me, it seemed so routine and uninteresting that I practically turned it down.
But it was far from routine once you got into it, wasn't it, Nick?
Yes, indeed. So far from it that I almost got myself bumped off investigating it.
It's really the story of a man who thought he was so much cleverer than Nick that he could outwit him every time.
I don't suppose he got away with it.
No, he found he wasn't really so clever after all. Like practically every criminal I ever met, he gave himself away by being too clever.
Well, sounds like an interesting tale, Nick.
Not only interesting, but downright exciting. But more of that next week. So long, folks.
So long.
And so long to you, Nick and Patsy. In the strange adventure you've just heard, Nick Carter was impersonated by Lon Clark, Patsy by Helen Choate, and Scubby by John Kane. The story was written for Nick Carter by George Gordon. Original music was played by Lew White. The entire production was under the direction of Jock McGregor. Next week, listen to another curious experience of Nick Carter entitled
The Body on the Slab, or Nick Carter and the Mystery of the Missing Husband.
This story is a copyrighted feature of Street and Smith Publications, Incorporated.
No, Nicky, darling, that's not it.
It isn't, Nora?
No, it goes like this. 33 fine brews blended into one great beer.
Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer presents The New Adventures of the Thin Man with Nick and Nora Charles, the happiest, merriest married couple in radio. And every Tuesday night at this same time, that international favorite Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer proudly presents the finest in summertime entertainment. So sit back, relax, and pour yourself a tall, foaming glass full of blended, splendid Pabst Blue Ribbon. While you listen to the stars of our show, Claudia Morgan as Nora and Les Tremaine as Nick, in tonight's adventure of the Thin Man, entitled The Adventure of the Passionate Palooka. It's 1 o'clock in the morning of one of those sizzling July nights that make the average New Yorker feel like a hot dog on a griddle with mustard. We find our hero, Nick Charles, tossing restlessly in his bed and mumbling to himself.
I wonder if I ought to get Nora to hit me on the head with one of my old blackjacks. Oh, no, she'd enjoy that too much. Oh, nuts.
Of course, Nora is twitching away in her bed, too. And when she notices that Nick's managed to close his eyes and doze off, she mumbles sweetly to herself.
He can't do that to me, the big goon. What right has he got to sleep in a night like this and leave me alone in my misery?
And so, with genuine wifely devotion, she gently wakes Nick up.
Nick! There's a fire!
What'd you say? Fire?
Yes, a fire!
How? When? Where?
On my sheets, and I'm cooking. Were you asleep?
Yes.
I thought so.
Is that why you woke me?
Well, you had no right to do it without telling me how.
Do what?
Fall asleep?
Well, dear, I thought of hundreds of people diving into swimming pools.
Female people?
Why, yes. They were all beautiful. They all looked like you.
Oh, nice. Maybe I'll think of hundreds of you jumping into a pool.
Well, that's a great idea. Makes me feel cooler already.
You're making your first leap. You're diving.
I look like a swan, huh?
You land flat on your tummy.
Hey, you must be thinking of someone else, Nora. I never dive like that.
Now you're under the water.
What stroke am I doing?
You've disappeared.
Hey, wait a minute. Don't I come up?
No, I can't see you.
Well, Nora, get me out of here. I'm drowning.
I'm diving in after you. The crowds are applauding.
Hurry, will you?
I'm fishing around for you.
I'm over here.
I've got you.
Hey, let go. You're pulling my hair.
Keep quiet. I'm rescuing you.
Nora, baby, you're being carried away. You're pulling me out of bed by the hair.
That's the way you rescue people, you goon.
But I haven't got that much hair left. Cut it out.
Let me drag you to the shore first.
I'm on the floor, Nora, dear. Or is it the shore?
It's the shore. Everyone is pinning medals on me and saying, what did she ever want to rescue him for?
Oh, nuts. Now you've just about ruined all my chances of ever falling asleep.
That's a fine thing to say to a wife who just saved your life. Who wants to sleep tonight anyway?
What do you think we should do?
Let's go out.
Go out?
Mm-hmm.
At this hour? Nora, do you want me to become the kind of a bum I used to be?
Mm-hmm. Just for tonight.
Okay, baby. Nick the Dick prowls again.
we came out. Look, the whole town's up.
Yeah. And look what we're walking into, a band of serenaders.
Hey, Bud, would you and your girl like to find a way to forget the heat?
We certainly would, Mr. Bud.
Then join the Gutter Glee Club for unmusical verses.
Oh, I'd like to, but won't you get into trouble singing in front of that apartment house?
For the astronomical rents they pay in that joint, they deserve a little music.
Come on, Nicky, you know plenty of wrong notes. Let's sing.
All right.
By the light of the silvery moon.
Hey, you troubadour, shut up! Stop it! Cease and desist! Hey!
Who's breaking it up, Nora?
The man on the seersucker who just ran out of the building.
Go on, scram, or I'll call the cops.
The trouble with you, Bud, is you ain't got no joy in your heart.
But I got two musical ears on my head. Go on, skedaddle, go on.
Oh, Nick, there's a man who would put the harps in heaven out of tune.
I think I know that guy.
If you do, you shouldn't. He looks so grouchy, I bet he bites himself for breakfast every morning just to make sure he feels sore.
Well, what are you waiting for? Contribution?
Aren't you Scoot Skillet, the fight manager?
Yeah, what if I get... Nick Charles, how are you? Where'd you get her?
Oh, I figured I needed a manager, so I let her sign me up for life.
Glad to know you, Mrs. Charles. Hey, say, Nick, you want to get a piece of something good? I'll sell you half of Atom Bomb Brickenhead for only $2,000.
Well, who's Atom Bomb Brickenhead?
My sensational new fighter who's meeting the champ tomorrow night.
Oh. Which half of this prize fight are you selling?
She's the educated type who don't know nothing about nothing, huh, Nick? I mean a half interest.
Why should you want to sell before the big fight, Scoots?
I need money bad. What do you say, Nick?
No dice. What's wrong with Brickenhead?
Yeah, this... How'd you guess?
Because you wouldn't sell a half interest in the right time if you could make a buck at it.
Well, then maybe you can help me. Listen, the atom bomber just ain't himself. Nobody can find out what's eating him. Being as you're a detective, maybe you can find out, Nick.
Where is Mr. Atom Bomb?
Upstairs.
Well, just what's wrong with him?
Even the doctors can't find out. They says it's all in his mind. So I calls in a mind specialist, a head doctor. And you know what he tells me?
What?
That the atom bomber ain't got no mind. And this information cost me $25 an hour.
Well, of course we'll help you, Mr. Scoot. Come, Nicky, let's meet this mindless wonder.
Hello, Scoot.
Hello, sunshine. Bomber, I want you to meet Nick and Nora Charles.
Oh, cheers.
Hello, Mr. Atom Bomber. What's this cheers business?
I heard it in the movie. It seemed so debonair. Oh, I'm so unhappy.
Bomber, suppose you tell us what's bothering you.
Nothing. Except I'm miserable.
Why are you miserable?
Because I'm unhappy.
But why are you unhappy?
Because I'm miserable. See, it's a vicious cycle. Oh, me.
But, Bomber, there must be some reason why you're groaning like a sick cow.
I wish I was a cow.
Well, you got the voice for it, but your figure's wrong.
Yeah, there's a catch to everything, ain't there?
Just a second. Why do you wish you were a cow?
Why not? I wish I was anything as long as I ain't me.
But what's wrong with you?
Nothing hurts me nowhere, Doc.
Listen, no mind. These ain't doctors. They're detectives. I thought they might help you.
Well, nobody can help me. Not even Betty Gray. Detectives? Did you say detectives?
Why, yes.
Detectives.
Look, Nick, he's coming to life. He don't look dead no more. He looks dumb, like he used to be.
Scoots, leave me alone with these two people. I gotta talk to them alone.
What's the matter? You don't trust me no more?
No, but I'm temperamental. I'm trained to a fine point. Nervous and high-strung. Like an underbred thoroughbred.
Yeah?
I know I am because I read about me in tonight's sports page. Now, leave me alone with him.
Okay, Bomber.
Nick, Nora, you're the only two peoples in the world who can help me.
Can we?
I didn't want to tell no one before because no one thinks I got any brains, which is true. You see, Nick, it's JoJo. I love JoJo.
Well, what happened to JoJo?
She's gone. She left me.
Why?
I don't know. I always treated her good. I never even kicked her. Not even once.
How sweet of you.
I never even kept her chained up. Hey, maybe I should have chained her up, huh, Nick?
Well, there are two schools of thought about that, but it's good for some females.
Yeah, And whenever she got hungry, I always threw her a bone.
Well, how generous of you. What's that? What kind of a dame are you in love with?
A high-class kind, of course.
Who eats bones?
Lulu don't eat bones. She eats caviar.
Lulu? But we were talking about Jojo. How many people do you love, Mr. Attenbomber?
Just 3. Me, Jojo, and Lulu.
Now, let's take them one at a time. Who's Jojo?
Just the most beautiful mongrel dog I ever found in an alley, that's all. And I love her.
When did the dog disappear?
On the night I fought with Lulu.
Oh, Lulu's a prize fighter.
No, but she should be with the right she's got. Lulu is a girl. Jojo is a dog, and me, I'm a rare phenomenon.
You are?
That's what the doctor said I was. Nick, Nora, promise me you won't tell nobody what's wrong with me. Not even Scoots.
Why?
Well, if everybody knew how I felt about Jojo, they'd think I was dumber than I really am. Can I help it if I love dogs?
We'll keep your secret.
And now, will you find Jojo for me? How can I win the World's Championship tomorrow night, knowing Jojo is walking the street with no one to scratch her fleas? Look at me. Take pity on me. I'm wallowing in woe. I'm crying.
We'll find your doggie, Mr. Attenbomber, before tomorrow night.
Mrs. Childs, you're a dear, sweet person. Almost as sweet as Jojo.
Nicky, darling, what makes you think we can find a dog in a nightclub like this? I mean, a dog who not only bites, but barks.
Beautiful. Have you ever heard of Banana Nose Norbert?
Is it an ice cream sundae or a relation of Jimmy Durante?
He's the guy who owns this dive, and he practically runs the underworld of this town. We became friends when I sent him up the river years ago.
Nick, you promised me that we were going to live in the upper world from now on.
I was afraid you'd object. That's why I brought you here before I told you the reason. Nora, baby, it isn't as if this was a detective case or something, but do you think that dog disappeared by accident?
You mean the poor pooch is the victim of dog snatchers?
Well, do you think smart gamblers would stop at stealing a dog if they knew the effect it would have on the atom bomber?
Hello, Nick. Waiter said you wanted to see me.
Oh, Banana Nose. This is my wife, Nora.
Well, wonders never cease. You're the first guy who ever came into this joint with a beautiful tomato that he was actually married to.
Why, thank you, Mr. Banana Nose.
You don't mind that I called you tomato, Mrs. Charles?
No, if you don't mind my calling you Banana Nose. Banana Nose and tomato. We ought to get together and open a vegetable store.
That's very funny.
Listen, Banana Nose. I'm looking for the pup that was stolen from Atom Bomb Brickenhead.
Oh, yeah? Why?
We promised to return him. Without that dog, Mr. Atom Bomb is so depressed he'll hardly be able to fight tomorrow night.
Oh, so that's why the odds went down against him. You know, Nick, a few weeks ago, the experts figure him to beat the champ.
He will beat the champ if he has his doggie.
And if he does, someone named me can clean up a load of loot. Nick, your worries are over.
They are?
Just tell me what the pooch looks like, and by tomorrow morning, you will have that dog in your apartment for breakfast.
You are listening to the new adventures of the Thin Man, presented for your summertime entertainment by the makers of that international favorite, Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. Just before our program started tonight, you heard on your radio those NBC chimes. You know, that bing-bong bell. Now, you've probably heard that NBC musical signal 150 times or more. And every time you've heard it, bing-bong bell, it made exactly the same sound. Well, I can't think of a better way to illustrate the uniformity of Pabst Blue Ribbon. If you enjoy a good glass of beer, you've probably ordered Pabst Blue Ribbon 150 times or more, and I'm sure you noticed every glassful was exactly alike. Not too heavy, not too light, but fresh, clean, sparkling, with the real beer flavor coming through just the way you like it. Now, how does Pabst keep it that way year after year? Well, I can sing the answer to that one, too. 33 fine brews blended into one great beer. Yes, that Pabst blending process is costly, and it takes infinite patience, but the result? Well, I'll leave it to your sense of taste. Why not order a few cans or bottles and learn why millions the world over have settled down to blended, splendid Pabst Blue Ribbon? Relax, and let's catch Act 2 of tonight's Thin Man adventure. Nick and Nora Charles have promised to find Jojo, the mongrel pooch whose mysterious disappearance has broken the heart of Atom Bomber Brickenhead, the heavyweight challenger who lacks a mind. It's now 11:30 in the morning, and we find our hero and heroine at breakfast.
Nicky, do you know what I dreamed about last night?
Dogs?
Yes. How'd you find out?
I dreamed about them, too.
Well, darling, tonight Mr. Atom Bomb goes into the ring to battle for the championship. And he's still dogless.
Well, don't worry, dear. Banana-Nose Norbert won't fail us.
He said he'd have the dog here for breakfast. We're having breakfast. And no dog.
Oh, now, Nora, you mustn't take it so to heart.
Why not? Poor Mr. Atom Bomber. Without a mind, without a dog, and with a broken heart. What's he got?
Cauliflower ears, 200 pounds of solid muscle, and an appealing personality.
I think Lulu's behind the whole thing.
The Atom Bomber's girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
But they're in love with each other. Why should she pull a mean trick like dog napping?
Well, I'm in love with you, and I do mean things to you.
Yeah, that's true. Why do you do them?
Because I love you, Natch. Besides, they had a fight.
Wait a minute. Listen.
It's a dog. Unless I'm hearing things, too.
There are two dogs. One's a coloratura soprano, and the other is a basso profundo.
Listen, Nick. It's a full operatic ensemble.
Nora, this can't be. This thing has affected our minds. We've gone pooch potty.
Oh, one of the dogs is ringing our bell.
Just a minute.
Hiya, Nick.
Banana-Nose.
I told you I'd have the dog for you. Got my boys to round up all they could find. Hey, you dog, shut up. Hey, Spike, make them dogs obey me. Don't they know who I am?
Come in, Banana. Let the dogs rest in the hall.
Hello, Mrs. Charles. The banana nose never fails. I got the pooch, I think.
So I heard. What made you do this?
Oh, I ain't no dope. With these low odds on the Atom Bomber, there's going to be plenty in it for old Banana Nose when we find the doggy and the Atom Bomber wins the fight.
Yeah, I see your angle. But, Banana-Nose, I thought you'd figured some gambler took the pooch.
I checked on that angle. The hound was not hijacked. So I figured he was on the loose, since the Dog Society didn't pick him up.
It isn't a him dog. It's a her.
A tomato?
Mm-hmm. Jojo is a female.
Well, I'll be doggone. I forget there was two kinds. I told them to pick up all the black and white mongrels they could find, no matter what kind of personalities they had.
Yeah, well, we'll bring the dogs in, and I'll have the Atom Bomber come down and see if he can identify one of them.
Are you going to bring that mob of mongrels in here, Nicky?
Well, what can we do, Nora? We've got to be good hosts.
Well, you can stay here with them, Nick. I know what I'm going to do.
Where are you going, Nora?
To investigate my own angle on this dog napping. I'll call you up, darling. I'll sneak out the back way. Bye.
Nora!
Well, Nick, shall I bring him in?
I guess so.
Okay, you mugs, send in all the girl dogs.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you Miss Lulu Laverne?
I am she.
Well, I'm Mrs. Nora Charles.
Pleased to meet you, I think. Entree. French. That means come in and also something expensive to eat in high-class continental dumps.
It does?
Yeah. Are you interested in culture?
I suppose so.
Culture's my latest passion.
Well, I thought Mr. Atom Bomb Brickenhead was that.
Oh. What do you know about it?
He told me about you, Lulu.
He did he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever he said, it's a foul and delicious canary.
You mean malicious canard?
Oh, trying to out-culture me, are you?
No, Lulu. I'm just trying to find Mr. Atom Bomber's dog.
Well, what did you come here for? Do I look like a dog catch? Don't answer that.
Lulu, all day long, poor Mr. Atom Bomber's been trying to identify his dog. Hundreds of dogs have been brought to my house. So far, his hasn't turned up.
Not even one of them pooches is Jojo?
Not one. If he goes into the fight without Jojo, he'll just be killed.
That's great.
I know you took the dog.
Oh, so I'm a dog thief now.
The doorman of this apartment house saw you with the dog.
And after the tip I gave him for Christmas. But he didn't see me with Jojo. He saw me with my own dog, Chi-Chi.
He saw you with 2 dogs.
That must have been the night he seen me with the atom bomber.
The atom bomber isn't 2 dogs.
He is so. You don't know him as good as I do.
Lulu, you just say those things because you had a fight with him.
Sure. Can you give me a better reason?
And on the day you had a fight, you took the dog out for a walk, and you told him she ran away.
She did.
Why?
Because we girls just didn't get along together. And besides, no man should love another female as much as he loved that dog, even if she has got a better pedigree than I got.
Lulu, you're jealous of Jojo.
Me? Jealous of a pooch? What's she got? Dog skin. I got mink.
Lulu, you know where that dog is, and I'm going to see that you return her.
You can't scare me. Hey, who are you calling?
My husband. He'll make you confess.
That's unfair. You can't turn a man loose on me. You can see I'm the type that men can melt.
Nick. Good heavens, who answered the phone? Nick!
Hello, Nora, baby.
I thought the dogs answered the phone for a moment.
Well, they've done everything but that. Banana Nose and his boys keep bringing them in by the dozens. Hey, get down.
Have you found Jojo among them?
No. The atom bomber's here. He's dazed from the dogs and scared to go into the ring. Hey, don't bite.
Nick, come up here to Lulu's place right away. I'm sure she's got the dog.
Okay, Lulu's place. Wait a minute. The atom bomber's got to rush to the fight now. Hey, Bomber, you want to say something to your girl, Lulu?
Yeah. Hello, Lulu. I love you, Lulu.
I'm glad to hear it, Mr. Bomber. But this is Nora. Lulu, come here and say something nice to him. He's got to rush to the fight now. Encourage him.
I sure will. Hello, Bomber?
Lulu, I'm so miserable.
Good. And my best wish is that the champ should murder you in the first round.
Lulu, what a wish.
What are you complaining about? If you're croaking round 1, you won't have to finish the fight. Goodbye.
Well, folks, we're at the end of round 2 of this television broadcast of the World Championship fight. And the Atom Bomber has covered the champ with blood. That is, the Atom Bomber's blood.
Lulu, Nora and I have brought you to this beer parlor to see what you've done to the poor Atom Bomber.
Yes, Lulu, look at him. He looks terrible.
That's the television set. It ain't perfected yet.
Folks, as you look at the face of the Atom Bomber, don't think your television set is broken. It's just what the champ did to him.
Oh, boy, he's really a mess, ain't he?
There's the bell, folks, and we're off for another round of slaughter. Here comes the Atom Bomber. He dived right into the champ's right.
Oh, stop him back, Bomber.
The Bomber's tired of the champ's right, so he's aiming his head at the champ's left. Bullseye!
Oh, the poor Bomber.
Nick, she's breaking down.
I can't bear to see his ugly face falling like that. All right, I'll give you the proof. She's in a dog hotel on a honeymoon with my dog. Come on, I'll show you where.
Here's Jojo.
Thanks, Doc. Nick and Nora, can we still get to the fight on time?
Yes, Lulu. Scoots has some ringside seats for us, right near the Atom Bomber's corner.
So this is Jojo. How do you like being a bride, Jojo?
Come on, you 3 gushing girls. We've got to rush.
We got here in time. Look, the Bomber is still alive.
Yes, he's resting between the rounds. Nora.
Yes, dear.
You sit here with Lulu. I'm going to take Jojo to the Bomber's corner.
All right.
Hey, Scoots! Bomber! Look what I've got here! Hey, Scoots!
Nick, don't bother me. We're trying to keep him conscious.
I've got something that'll make him win the fight.
Look, Nick, I ain't got time. This boy of mine needs everything but a blood transfusion.
Scoots, I'll buy that half interest in your boy for $2,000.
Sold. I'll sell you the half above the waist. That's completely dead wood.
It's a deal. Now let me talk to my half of my boy.
Okay, here.
Bomber, look what I've got under my arm.
Jojo. My little doggy Jojo.
Yes, your girl Lulu had her. She took her because she thought you loved her more than you loved her.
That ain't true. I love my dog just as much as I love my girl.
And Lulu loves you, too. And there she is. She came here to watch you win the championship.
Lulu? Oh, boy, I'm gonna kill that champ. I'm gonna murder him. My fighting spirit is returned. Nothing can stop me now.
Okay, I'm going back to our seats. Go in there and win, Bomber.
Nick! Nick!
I'm coming, baby.
Tell the bomber what happened.
Yes, Nora.
Did it do any good?
Good. You just watch, Lulu. As soon as he saw you and the dog, he was practically resurrected.
Resurrected? Is that good?
It's going to be sensational. There's the bell.
Look at him go.
Knock him in the head, Bomber.
Give him the old one, too.
Oh, boy, there goes the bomber. Look at him swing.
Yes. Look at him miss.
Look at him receive that wallop from the gym.
Look how nicely he falls.
Get up, bomber.
That's right, Bomber. Stay there and take a nice rest. Take a rest, Bomber.
He isn't resting, Nora. He's
Don't
unconscious.
be silly. He's being smart. Get up, Bomber.
Jojo, bark at him. Inspire him. Nora, he was knocked out.
But that's impossible. We did everything like they do in the movies, and it never ends this way. It's a foul. Foul!
Well, I'm afraid the bomber is down for the count. Now, if Nicky and Nora are smart, they'll go on home and have themselves a cold, refreshing bottle of that blended, splendid Pabst Blue Ribbon. The beer with the fresh, clean, sparkling flavor. You know, Pabst Blue Ribbon is quite a home favorite with happily married couples. Just to mention a few, there's Mr. and Mrs. Gregory Peck, Mr. and Mrs. Bob Hope, Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence Melchior, and Miss Gladys Swarthout and her husband, Mr. Frank Chapman. Now, these people can certainly afford the best of everything. And the fact that Pabst Blue Ribbon is served in their homes is a tribute to its quality. I could tell you about Pabst's 104 years of leadership in the art of brewing and explain how Pabst developed the science of blending. Yes, blending 33 fine brews to keep the same identical Blue Ribbon flavor and quality in bottle after bottle, year after year. But I'd rather you'd simply taste it yourself. By tasting, by comparing, you'll understand why millions the world over have settled down to blended, splendid Pabst Blue Ribbon. And now for the conclusion of tonight's Thin Man adventure.
Hello, Nicky, darling. Where have you been?
To see Scoots and pay him for my half of the bomber.
Oh. How is he?
Very happy. He wishes there were more people like me in the world and less fighters like the bomber.
Well, that's not nice. The bomber really tried hard.
Yeah, I know. The bomber says he would have won the fight if the champ didn't get in his way so much.
I know. But is it Mr. Bomber's fault if there was another man in the ring? Anyway, I'm glad to hear he's going to marry Lulu.
When'd you find that out?
Oh, Lulu phoned a few minutes ago.
Well, that's one match I hope he'll win. Nora.
Hmm?
Nora, darling, what are you knitting there?
Can't you guess?
Why, it looks like a little garment. Nora, don't tell me.
Yes, it's true. Jojo's going to have puppies.
Well, then congratulate me.
Why?
After what I went through with that dog, I practically feel like a father. Looks like another hot night tonight.
And if we can't sleep, I know just what to do now.
Hmm? Go out again?
No, we'll get into too much trouble that way. We'll each have a glass of ice-cold Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, and then I'll do this. And say, good night, Nicky, darling.
Next Tuesday night, when Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer brings you another happy, exciting Thin Man adventure with Les Tremaine and Claudia Morgan. Next week, the adventure of the haunted hams, when Nick and Nora go to the country and discover that livestock aren't the only stock in barns during the summer. The Adventures of the Thin Man is brought to you by the Pabst Brewing Company of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Newark, New Jersey, and Peoria, Illinois. And this is Ed Hurley saying good night with the best wishes of Pabst Blue Ribbon dealers from coast to coast.
The Adventures of Father Brown. And here he is, Father Brown, the best-loved detective of them all.
Humanity produces optimists only because it has never produced a really happy man.
From the masterful and exciting pages of G.K. Chesterton comes that fascinating human being, Father Brown, played by Carl Swenson. Underneath the modest exterior of Father Brown is the rich character of a generous, deeply human man with a sensitive and quick-witted mind. In addition to being a man of God, he is a man of the world, a man of science, and a brilliant amateur detective. And now, the three tools of death. Facing the afterglow of a beautiful summer sunset, Father Brown sits alone in the study of his modest parish house. He is half dozing when Nora, his housekeeper, enters.
Father Brown. Father Brown.
No. Yes, Nora? What time is it?
Time for your tea. Here it is, nice and hot.
Ah, thank you. Just set it there, please.
Were you asleep?
Oh, I was in between, Nora, just in between. A beautiful state of being, I assure you. Half out of this world and half in.
It's a good thing young Father Peter took over your duties for today. I told him... There's somebody at the door. Don't worry, I'll take care of that.
No.
Good evening, Nora. Is Father Brown in?
I'm sorry, Flambeau, but he's rested.
No, Nora. You know Flambeau's always welcome. Tell him to come in.
Oh, all right.
Come in, Flambeau. Have a cup of tea.
No, thanks, Father. I'm all upset. A friend of mine is in trouble.
Oh.
Will you come with me to Oakville? My car's outside.
Here. No, not so fast. Get your breath. Sit down.
Father, you've heard of Aaron Armstrong, the philanthropist and lecturer?
Oh, Armstrong. The author of those bestsellers on how to be happy, etc. Has that such a tremendous following?
Yes, Father, that's the one.
Oh, yes. I've read his books. And I attended one of his lectures once in which he offered his followers an easy road to happiness. Or heaven, as he called it.
That's the guy, Father.
Yes. As I remember, he apparently based his teachings on one of the Proverbs of Solomon. A merry heart doeth good like medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones.
Uh-huh.
Yes. He believed in giving up all the physical appetites, smoking, overeating, and drinking. Oh, yes, and above all, he believed in being cheerful. He dealt with the drink problem with an enormous gaiety.
Well, he's dead.
What?
His body was discovered early this morning.
Well, you don't say. Where?
Right near his house, in a ditch on the parkway.
What happened?
Nobody knows. But according to the police, it looks like murder.
Did you say his house is close to the parkway?
Yes, on an embankment just above it.
Well, what makes the police think it wasn't an accident, Flambeau?
Well, he was wearing only his dressing gown. And another strange thing, Father. A small piece of rope was tied around one of his ankles.
Was any weapon found?
No, but it was apparent he'd been struck on the head by a huge instrument of some sort. Cuts and bruises on his body showed signs of a struggle.
Well, who put you on the case?
Oh, no one. The dead man's secretary, Robert Royce, is an old friend of mine. I called him as soon as I heard the news and offered him my services as private investigator. But he refused to see me.
Well, that's strange. No, yet no. Not so strange if he were implicated. Who else is there beside Royce in the household?
Just Armstrong's daughter. A very attractive girl, I hear, but completely dominated by her father's cheerfulness.
Uh-huh.
And there's also a gardener, I believe.
And your friend Royce, what sort of man is he?
Oh, he's a huge, genial sort of fellow. A Scotsman.
Did he and Armstrong get along well together?
Well, Royce was devoted to him.
Ah, yes. Armstrong had many devoted followers. You know, he's always interested me, Flambeau. He puzzled me, in fact.
Puzzled you?
Yes. When first I heard him lecture, I remember thinking that he had a troublesome road ahead.
I believe that somewhere in his life you'll find the secret of his death.
But, Father, according to the papers, he lived as he preached.
Oh, yes, I know, Flambeau. The old fellow's optimism was phenomenal. But somehow I don't believe he found that easy road to heaven, as he called it.
No?
No. Neither have I. There is no shortcut to heaven, my friend.
But who would want to kill such a man?
Well, if ever I murdered somebody, I dare say it might well be an optimist of the proportions of old Armstrong. His optimism was so out of proportion.
I've heard cheerfulness referred to as a virtue.
Yeah, well, people like frequent laughter, but a permanent smile, Flambeau. Well, now that's something else again. As Shakespeare says, the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape.
Oh, Father, it's 6 o'clock. We're just in time for the news. Let's turn on the radio.
That's a good idea. Perhaps there's something further on the case.
Listen.
Clear tonight and tomorrow somewhat cooler. Now we bring you a special bulletin just handed me on the Armstrong
Yeah,
case.
turn it up, Flambeau.
John Magnus, the gardener, the millionaire philanthropist, has been reported missing.
Oh.
Also, negotiable bonds of the dead man valued at $100,000. The police received this report only a short while ago and are now conducting a statewide search for the gardener. It is believed...
Well, that seems to be the first real clue. Do you mind if I use the phone, Father? I'd like to talk to Royce again.
Yeah. The call will cost you a nickel. Tax 2 cents. That's 7 cents. Just drop a dime in the poor box on your way out.
All right, Father. Hello, Royce? This is Flambeau. Now, wait a minute. We just heard the news about the gardener's disappearance. Oh, hold on. You remember the friend I was telling you about? Yes, Father Brown. Well, we'd like to come up. What's that? Oh, I don't get it. Royce. My father, he's hung up.
What did he say?
He said if we valued our lives, we wouldn't go near that house.
Ah, interesting. Well, Flambeau, that's what I call a real invitation. Come on, my friend, let's go.
Well, I'm sure there's someone here, Father.
Ring again, Flambeau. Here's someone now.
Yes? What do you want?
Oh, good evening, Royce.
So it's you, Flambeau. I thought I warned you plain enough over the phone.
You did. But look here, Royce. I don't understand.
It was plain English I spoke.
I know, but you sounded like you were in trouble.
Well, I'm not.
Oh, come, man. Don't act as though we weren't friends. Oh, this is Father Brown.
I gathered as much.
Mr. Royce, I'm afraid I'm to blame for this visit.
Well, it was good of you to come, Father, but I wish you'd both heeded my warning.
Man, what kind of a friend would I have been if I had?
I tell you, the police have already investigated.
I know. I've talked with them.
Perhaps we can help you, Mr. Royce.
Help? In what way?
Well, maybe we could tell better if you'd ask us in.
Very well. You may come in. What you should have let sleeping dogs lie, Flambeau.
Well, Royce, I must confess I can't find anything here in Armstrong's room that tells us very much.
And just what did you expect to find?
Mr. Royce.
Yes?
What do you make of the gardener's disappearance?
Magnus is a fool, maybe a thief, but he never killed Mr. Armstrong. I'm sure it was the deed of a madman.
I see. My. Well, I would never have expected those to be there.
Father, what are you looking at?
That pair of socks over there thrown under the bureau.
Oh, they should be in the bureau drawer. Here, I'll put them away.
Wait. May I have a look at those bureau drawers, Mr. Royce?
What for?
Well, I'd just like to look.
What are you searching for?
And I'll take a peep at that closet, too, if you don't mind. Well, now that's funny.
What, Father?
Everything looked so neat when we came in.
Mr. Armstrong was always very particular.
Everything is in order on the surface. But underneath, things look different.
What things?
Well, in the closet, his socks are stuffed in the hangers with his suits. And in the bureau drawers, under those beautifully laid-out shirts...
Yes?
A whole lot of ginger spilled from a box.
Why do you have to go on with this? The police went over the room very thoroughly.
The room, perhaps. But they seem to have missed this piece of rope. Look here. I found it caught in the vine just below the ledge of the window.
Well, it couldn't have been there this morning or the police would have found it.
Well, I just saw the wind blow an end of it out from under the vine. Royce, maybe you can tell me how this piece of rope got there.
What has that got to do with the case?
You know perfectly well a piece of rope was tied around the leg of the dead man.
That rope in your hand was left from fixing the windows.
Well, now, I'm just wondering.
Wondering what, Father?
Well, let me take a look out of that window.
Why?
For a very good reason. The police haven't yet established why the dead man was found on the parkway. No, that isn't it. The window isn't high enough from the ground for him to have fallen, or been pushed, or to have jumped.
Right. And not high enough for his body to have rolled down the embankment to the parkway.
Mr. Rice, isn't there another floor to this house?
There's only an attic.
Robert?
That's Miss Armstrong. She's been much upset since her father's death.
Oh, yes, of course.
You'll have to excuse me for a moment.
Certainly.
Father, I don't like the look of things. This rope I found in the vine was cut with a sharp instrument. The rope found on Armstrong's ankle was also cut with a sharp instrument. And did you notice the cut on Royce's knuckle?
Yes, I did, Flambeau. But, I haven't noticed any geniality. He's hardly the person you described to me.
Yes, I know, Father. Didn't like him.
Nevertheless, it seems to fit his unshaven appearance.
It's the first time I've ever seen him that way, either.
You're worried about your friend's innocence, aren't you?
Oh, I know how the mind of a thief works, Father. I was once a thief myself. But murder...
You think he's capable of murder?
Well, the answer to that one is more up your alley, Father.
Well, in any event, he's hiding something. But I think there is a secret in this house more important than his, and I'm very anxious to find out what it is. Now, first, look at the stains on the wall. And you felt the dust on the banisters as we came up.
Well?
Well, but the question fairly screams at us, Flambeau.
What question?
Why are there no servants in this house?
Well, Armstrong certainly had plenty of money. He could afford them.
Mm-hmm. There could only be one reason. If the old man himself had something to hide.
Father, you mean you think Armstrong...
Well,
Miss Armstrong's in the drawing room downstairs. She'd like to talk to you, Father Brown. If you will please follow me.
Well, I hesitate to continue, Miss Armstrong. I know how badly you feel.
Please go on, Father Brown. I'm quite all right.
But that bruise on your forehead, Miss Armstrong...
Oh, that's nothing. It doesn't bother me. I bumped it.
Your father had a great many followers, didn't he?
Oh, yes, he helped so many people.
Do you know why your father decided to give up all his servants?
Well, great men like my father have their peculiarities.
Their ideas are often different from other people's.
Yes, very true, Mr. Royce, very true. I was only wondering...
Wait.
What?
Listen. Someone's unlocking the front door.
Who could it be? No one has a key besides us.
Who's that?
Me, Magnus.
Magnus?
Yes, Miss Armstrong. Magnus.
And here is Inspector Vincent. Well, how are you, Inspector?
Fine, Father Brown, fine. Hello, Flambeau. I might have known you two would be here.
Well, I see you got your man, Inspector. Is this the gardener who walked out of here with $100,000 worth of bonds?
Walked out of here and right into my office to place them in my charge. Hello, Royce. Are you feeling better, Miss Armstrong?
Yes, thank you, Inspector.
Now, Magnus, perhaps you'd care to tell Miss Armstrong why you took those bonds without consulting her.
No one in this household is to be trusted. Not even Miss Armstrong.
Now, see here, Magnus.
Just a minute, Royce. What I want to know, why did you wait so long before reporting this gardener's absence?
We didn't think much of it, Inspector, until I noticed the bonds were gone, too.
I was waiting for you to report it. Magnus has been telling me some very interesting things.
A new angle on the case, Inspector?
Well, it closes the case if Magnus is telling the truth.
Inspector, what this man says is not to be taken seriously. He's not been himself.
What makes you say that?
Magnus used to be my father's personal valet, Inspector. But he was taken off that and put to work in the garden. He's been very upset.
He thought it was quite a come-down.
Upset, am I? Well, I like that. I wasn't going to tell the inspector about you two being in love, But now
Be careful what you say, Magnus.
You weren't so careful what you said when I heard you two talking in the garden the other night.
Magnus.
I've stood enough of this.
Take it easy, Royce.
Inspector, may I make a suggestion?
Just a minute, Father Brown. Magnus, what are you getting at?
About 4 nights ago it was. I heard them in the garden. He was begging her to marry him. They didn't know I was close by.
No. No, Robert, we mustn't.
But Alice, you've no life of your own. Let's face your father now. Let's tell him how much we love each other.
Oh, but Robert, we must wait. We really ought to.
I know how important you are to his work, but what about us? Our life? We can't go on waiting forever.
Oh, but Robert, it won't be forever. Oh, darling, you know I love you. You must be sure of that.
I am sure, my dearest. Oh, if only I could get my hands on some money.
What do you mean, Robert?
I'd make you marry me then, Alice.
Oh, Robert, I feel guilty even thinking of it. We mustn't, my darling. Not now. So long as he's alive.
I'll find some way out of this.
Shh. I thought I heard someone.
We better not talk here. Come, my dear.
That's all I could hear. But I suspected them, what they were up to, and now I know.
You know what?
That they would be off with the money. Mr. Armstrong's money. The money he had wanted to be used for his work.
Inspector, this talk is ridiculous. You don't think...
Mr. Royce, do you use an old-fashioned razor?
Aye.
You didn't use it today. Why?
Why, I mislaid it.
When?
I don't know, since I last shaved, I guess.
That was yesterday. You can tell by his beard.
Magnus brought your razor to the precinct with him with the bonds. I'm holding it as evidence.
Why?
Because it had a smear of blood on it.
Oh, well, I must have cut myself shaving and forgot to wipe it.
Oh, Inspector, is this all the evidence you have of Royce's guilt?
Who said anything about Royce's guilt? Now, Magnus, tell them what you told me just now in the office.
I was sleeping in my room over the garage, and about 4 this morning I heard shots, followed by loud outcries, which seemed to come from the attic. An instant later, I saw Mr. Armstrong's body pitch from the window and roll down the embankment. When I made sure he was dead, I rushed up to the attic and found his daughter unconscious on the floor with a razor in her hand.
You mean Miss Armstrong killed her father?
It's a lie! Surely, Father Brown, you for one will take Miss Armstrong's word against his gardener's?
But is Miss Armstrong's word against him? So far, she has said nothing.
Miss Armstrong, can't you speak?
Magnus told the truth.
There, you see?
I'll get you for this.
I'll get you.
Here now.
No, you'll not say things like that.
I will, and I do.
Royce, go on, let's go.
None of that, Royce, or I'll arrest you for assault.
No. You'll arrest me for murder.
Robert!
But, man, you've been Armstrong's best friend. What possessed you?
I was drunk.
Sure. Didn't I find those empty bottles hidden in the garden, piling up week after week? Sure. I knew what was going on here.
Now, Magnus, you've told your story. Let Royce tell his.
Maybe he was too drunk to remember.
Miss Armstrong did not pick up the razor to attack, but to defend her father from me. In the scuffle, she hit her head against the eaves of the attic. I hurried down to get something to revive her, and it must have been then that Magnus came in and found her.
Oh, Robert!
All right, Royce. Come along.
Wait, Inspector, before you arrest Royce.
What is it now, Father Brown?
Well, so far we've had opinions and confessions. But we haven't had facts. And we need facts.
And where do you think we'll find them?
In the attic.
In the attic?
Yes, Inspector. Perhaps by climbing a few steps nearer heaven, we can come closer to this evil.
But, Father, I can't figure out what you expect to find in this attic.
You sleep here, don't you, Mr. Royce?
Aye.
And Mr. Armstrong slept in the room immediately below this.
Aye, but why all these questions?
Well, now, in the first place, Mr. Royce, why did you bring your victim up here at the crack of dawn in order to kill him? Why didn't you go to his room? Well?
I've confessed. Isn't that enough?
Well, confession is good for the soul, that's granted. But, Inspector, you remember Magnus telling us he was awakened by shots?
Yes. What about those shots, Inspector?
Were any bullets found in Armstrong's body?
Well, we investigated and didn't find a one.
Wait. Here is my pistol. I fired those shots. You can see the holes in the carpet.
Well, why should anybody fire at the carpet?
A drunken man will let fly at anything.
He doesn't pick a quarrel with his feet.
And there's the rope. It was from my window here that Armstrong was thrown.
And the piece of rope I found fell to the vines below.
What about the blow on the head? According to our report, he was struck by a massive weapon.
A massive weapon indeed, Inspector. Sure. The good green earth was the weapon.
Okay, so the good green earth was the weapon. But look, this room was the beginning of the murder. Even I can see from the disorder. Come on, Royce. Let's go.
But the disorder here is all on the surface. The very opposite of Armstrong's room. No, it doesn't fit. Too many inconsistencies.
Father Brown, Royce has given himself up.
No. Really, this won't do at all.
What won't do?
Well, first the police said no weapon was found at all. Now we're finding too many.
Too many?
Now, there's the razor to cut a person, the rope to strangle, the pistol to shoot, and after all this, Armstrong broke his skull falling out of a window. No. It won't do. It's not economical.
Alice, they won't believe me. You tell them.
Inspector,
Yes, young lady.
may I speak to Father Brown alone for a moment?
If you must, but be quick. We can't wait around here all night.
And now what is it, my child? What is it that you wish to say?
You're trying to save Robert, but it's no use. I should have realized before this his case is hopeless. Before he came to us, he was a prisoner of war. He had some shocking experiences.
Well, you think that was the reason for his drinking?
Yes, he wasn't himself at times. We thought he was getting over it, but... Father, I saw Robert commit the crime myself. I heard the shots. I ran up just in time to see him leap at my father.
Where was your father standing?
He was clinging to the windowsill in terror.
But the rope.
Robert tried to strangle him with it. Father fought back, and the rope slipped from his shoulders to his feet, tightening around the leg. Robert was like a maniac. I snatched the razor from the floor and managed to cut the rope before he pushed me against the
Miss
eaves.
Armstrong, what we see with our eyes is sometimes farthest from the truth. Now, you thought that you saw a man about to commit murder. What you actually saw was two men struggling, and then you lost consciousness.
But, Father Brown...
I want you to go downstairs, my dear.
I don't understand.
Go on now, please. Do as I say.
Very well.
Thank you, my dear.
Well, Father Brown, I've seen and heard enough to convince me. Unless you know something pretty startling, I'm taking Royce down and booking him.
If you don't mind, Inspector, I'd like to talk to Royce a bit before you do.
What about, Father?
Well, where's Alice?
She's out of earshot, Mr. Royce. So why don't you tell us about it now?
Tell you about what?
I see. Well, then I'll tell you, Inspector. Those 3 tools of death were not used to kill Armstrong, but to save him.
Save him?
Father, I don't get this.
Save him from what?
From himself. At the time old Armstrong died, he was a suicidal maniac. No, Royce, you weren't drinking.
No?
No, and you were the only one who knew what lurked behind old Armstrong's laughter.
No.
Yes, you knew that behind that merry mask was the mind of an atheist.
No.
A man who knew nothing of God. He didn't realize until it was too late that human beings need something to worship greater than themselves.
I warned Flambeau not to bring you here, Father. I was afraid it might come to this.
Well, man, what harm is there in the truth now?
Alice must never know.
Why? Why shouldn't she be told that you weren't the enemy her father feared? Shall I name the enemy, Royce?
All right, Father Brown. You win. This morning, Armstrong was determined to do away with himself. He knew I kept my service pistol in my dresser. And when he heard me go down to the kitchen early at dawn, he left his room and came up here.
And you came in and accidentally surprised him.
I got the pistol out of his hand, but in the struggle I had no time to unload, so I fired at the carpet. Then he found my razor and tried to slash himself. I snatched it from him and flung it to the floor. I ran after him with a rope to tie him up.
And it was then that the unlucky girl ran in, and misunderstanding the struggle.
She tried to cut her father free with a razor. She cut the rope, slashing my knuckle just as I pushed her, and he went crashing into eternity out of that window.
But, Father Brown, you spoke of an enemy old man Armstrong feared.
I did, yes.
You mean the enemy was in this room with him at the same time as Royce?
Yes.
Who was it?
The sin. The very thing Armstrong was so vehement against.
You mean alcohol?
It was his worst enemy. The moment I saw the ginger in one of the bureau drawers downstairs, I suspected it was the futile effort of a man who was trying to give up drinking. Isn't that right, Royce?
Yes, Father Brown. Armstrong was living a lie, and it preyed on his mind.
And he feared his public might find him out.
Aye. The more despondent he got, the darker visions he had of failing his followers. The people who looked to him for guidance. So fearful was he of anyone prying into his secret that he hid from his friends and got rid of all his servants.
And you were the only one he could confide in.
Aye.
He didn't understand your loyalty, did he?
No, but it was for her sake, you see.
And so you kept the knowledge of his spells to yourself, letting his daughter believe it was you, the result of the war.
Aye.
Well, Royce, I can't imagine why you didn't speak up before.
Don't you see? It was because she must never know.
Never know what?
Why, that she killed her own father.
I see. By trying to free him.
My son, I think she should know. After all, it was only an accident. And accidents, no matter how tragic, do not poison life like sins. I think you should both be happier now. Surely, 2 private lives are worth more than the public reputation of Aaron Armstrong.
Well, Father, at last you're back.
Yes, we were worried.
Hello, Nora. Hello, Peter.
Have you had dinner?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, that's a shame. I'd better go fix you something right away.
Ah, my. It's nice to sit down again. Oh, Peter, you missed your story tonight. I'm sorry.
Father, I heard tonight's story. Many versions of it.
You did? How?
From the news commentators over the radio.
Oh.
They've been reading bulletins on it every half hour or so.
I see.
Tell me, Father, what made you suspect Royce wasn't guilty?
Well, looking into the hidden places of his attic room convinced me of Royce's innate neatness, Peter.
I don't quite see.
Well, I knew that no one as orderly as Royce could commit such a murder. The whole thing was too sloppy. I mean, the 3 tools of death.
But how did you discover that Armstrong was a suicide?
Well, the same method, but in reverse. I'm afraid my methods are not orthodox, Peter. I'm no real detective. To me, a man's inner nature must be revealed first. Armstrong's habits revealed his nature just as Royce's did. They justified certain suspicions I had when Flambeau told me of his death.
What do you mean?
Well, Armstrong's erratic character was clear to me when I looked into his bureau drawers. See, there I saw the compartments of his mind. The neatness mixed with the disorder which his friend Royce had tried to cover up. The litter reflecting the mind of the depressed.
Surely you had something more than that to prove he was a suicide.
Well, yes, Peter, I had myself.
Yourself?
Yes. I dare say that I would feel as Armstrong did if I had ever preached an easy road to happiness and then had slipped into a ditch by the side of the road.
Yes, Father, I see.
Yes. Well, now, good night, Father Peter.
Good night, Father Brown.
Listening to The Adventures of Father Brown, with Carl Swenson as Father Brown. Father Brown's adventure tonight was called The 3 Tools of Death. The character of Father Brown was created by G.K. Chesterton in the detective novels called The Adventures of Father Brown. This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.
Christie's Poirot. From the thrill-packed pages of Agatha Christie's unforgettable stories of corpses, clues, and crime, Mutual now brings you, complete with bowler hat and brave mustache, your favorite detective, Hercule Poirot, starring Harold Huber in The Case of the Careless Victim. Before meeting Hercule Poirot in his first American adventure, it seems only fitting for the millions of faithful readers who have followed the little Belgian detective's career in book form to meet the famous lady who created this famous character. So it is our privilege to present a message from Agatha Christie introducing Hercule Poirot from London, England. The next voice you hear will be Miss Agatha Christie. Go ahead, London. We regret that due to atmospheric conditions, we have been unable to bring you Miss Christie from London.
I feel that this is an occasion that would have appealed to Hercule Poirot. He would have done justice to the inauguration of this radio program, and he might even have made it seem something of an international event. However, as he is heavily engaged on an investigation, about which you will hear in due course, I must, as one of his oldest friends, deputize for him. The great man has his little foibles, but really, I have the greatest affection for him. And it is a source of continuing satisfaction to me that there has been such a generous response to his appearance on my books. And I hope that his new career on the radio will make many new friends for him among a wider public.
Thank you, Miss Agatha Christie. And now, Mutual presents Hercule Poirot in his first American adventure, The Case of the Careless Victim.
Mademoiselle?
Huh?
This is the Cozy Home Apartment Renting Agency.
Well, we got something to rent, yeah.
I have the desire to rent an apartment.
Who hasn't?
Please, mademoiselle, do not jest. Alors, I have with me a brief dossier of my requirements. Please to read it.
Well, all right. Gentleman desires a bright sunshining apartment of a reasonable quietness near the heart of the city. Should be furnished with the utmost charm, French provincial if possible. Price is of no consequence as long as it is very reasonable. Please communicate with me at the Hotel Windsor, Hercules, Poirot. Poirot.
No, mademoiselle, the name is Poirot. Hercule Poirot.
Well, I wish you luck, Mr. Poirot.
Well, finding an apartment, mademoiselle, is not a matter of luck. It is a matter of employing the little gray cells. If you can find an apartment for me, please do me the kindness to inform me.
Sure, if you'll do something for me.
And what is that?
If you can find an apartment for me, please do me the kindness to inform me.
Going up. Floor, please.
Number 5. You are new here, no?
Yes, I only came on yesterday. You're Mr. Perrot, aren't you?
Poirot.
Oh, Perrot, one of the boys pointed you out. Yes, sir. That's for.
Oh, 1,000 apologies, madame.
Not at all. It was entirely my fault.
Madame appears troubled. Perhaps I may be of some slight assistance.
No, Well, if you're sure you don't mind.
But of course not.
You see, it's my door. It won't open.
And where is this alternate door,
It's right down the corridor, room 515.
If I may have the key.
But that's just it. The door isn't locked. I left it open only 10 minutes ago.
Indeed. Madame is very trusting, eh?
It is. You see, it's stuck. It won't budge.
It is not precisely stuck, madame. It gives a trifle. This door is barricaded.
Oh, my goodness.
Voila, she moves, eh?
Oh, thanks a million. Now, what do you suppose?
No, wait, madame. Perhaps it is better if I look first. Look. It is as I have feared.
What is it?
You do not know? Look.
Oh, it's a man. Is he tease.
Oui, madame. He has been strangled.
Oh.
This is murder. Zut alors, I must compliment you, madame. Your color is excellent. And you did not even commence to faint. For one who...
I don't fall apart in a crisis, if that's what you mean. And furthermore, I'm not madame. I'm mademoiselle, by choice. Miss Abigail Thresher. And now, if you'll get that corpse out of here, I'd like to sit down.
That I regret I cannot do, mademoiselle. The body must not be touched before the police arrive.
Police?
Well, yes, of course, the police. I am calling them now. Hello, hello. Ah, Inspector Stevens. It is I, Hercule Poirot. Alas, no. I have not yet found the apartment. But I have found something of perhaps more interest. A corpse. Right here in my hotel. Room number...
515.
Number 515. Mademoiselle, what are you doing with the body?
Nothing. I was just trying to see safe.
You will have that opportunity later. Pardon, Inspector. We are room 515. Bien. We shall expect you immediately. Dear Miss Thresher, now that you have observed the face of this unfortunate one, perhaps you will be good enough to tell me who he is?
I certainly will not. Who do you think you are?
Ah, ma'am.